We're live, so we'll call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that we live and work in Mi'kmaq as the steward of the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. I don't have any additions to the agenda. I don't know if anybody else does. Somebody want to move that we approve them?
Second.
Moved by Councillor Coolin, seconded by Councillor Church. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Public input. I'm unaware. Oh, well, I shouldn't say that. We have a couple people here. Anybody want to speak before we start? Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting, Committee of the Whole, January 9th. Errors or omissions?
Motion to approve minutes.
Moved by Councillor Asa, seconded by Councillor Bremner. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Public presentations. Nobody mentioned any to me.
Nope, not today.
Nice. 7.1, the reason we have public here. Gold River Bridge, next steps.
Good morning, everyone. So, further to the November council meeting, we received a technical report on the reassessment of the Gold River Bridge. Essentially gives us two options of rehabilitation above the other option, which is a new tender for a new bridge.
Yeah.
Basically, the pier's in good condition, but needs some repointing and drainage. The steel is pretty good, needs some repairs, and the timber trestles on either side is recommended for removal. So with the rehabilitation, the piers do stay in place and most of the bridge gets used. Of the two options, option C is the one recommended by staff. It's cheaper and it also looks symmetrical when you look at the drawings. And our current budget is $5 million, but adding contingencies and so forth, we feel option C is 7, which will require another $2 million, but versus the other cost for that. And we also feel the stakeholders want to save the bridge. The piers are important. So that's our recommendation. It's high level, but open for questions.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, the other stakeholders are on board and everything. I read in the report pretty much.
I would assume so, right? And,
I
they've
mean,
been given all the information we have.
So, and I think that's what they were calling for,
Yeah.
if possible.
It's cheaper than a new one. And
So, yeah, thanks for all the work in this, Fred. It's been an
Everyone
adventure,
else,
but.
yeah. I'm just a reporter.
Well, you always make 1,000 decisions before you have to make one sometimes, but that's why we're here.
Yes,
so
exactly.
if let's just assume we approve that recommendation today, when would we actually do the work?
They would have to
Just
finish
everybody's
out the
gonna
tender
ask me
there.
that, so I
We
might
would
just-
certainly want to still do it this summer, right?
Yeah.
Tender as soon as possible. Yeah, exactly, yeah. And this will all go back to municipal affairs as well to see if
Oh,
they
yeah,
have
to
any
see what
concerns.
role
Yeah.
they want to play or don't want to play. And-
Yeah, and verbally, they said they were okay with the change in scope, so we'll confirm all of that, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'd still get their money and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because technically there is still some demolition, right?
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
So
Anybody?
Tina had a
Oh,
question.
Go ahead, Tina.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tina first.
Thank you. So just a couple of questions to start. So the stakeholders, to be clear, the other stakeholders,
Well, there's the public, of course.
Sure, of
There's a
course.
petition there,
They're number one.
the Wahosaba First Nations, and of course, the Department of Municipal Affairs, who we go through
Sure.
to KMKNO right there. They're all very invested in this project. Right?
Second question right now, and again, I might have others in a few minutes, but second question's around potential money support, financial support, grants and the like.
Yeah.
So obviously, demolition's one thing. That's a no-brainer
Yeah.
through the province. But what other monies have we sought and what answers have we gotten back in terms of federally through a COA as one, and there could be others. Heritage Canada would be another one. I assume we've looked at Heritage Canada funding as well as provincially. Not demolition monies, but provincially through tourism, culture, heritage. I know
Yeah.
it's not called that anymore. Well, yeah, it
Yeah.
might be called that,
Yeah.
CCH.
Yeah.
CCH.
Yeah.
So I'm just using examples of other trail work around the province. And I really intended to look back at my notes on the Trestle Trail Bridge in Liverpool prior to coming in here, because I know they received, I'm pretty sure they received federal and provincial support. So I assume that that total figure is not just gonna be borne by the municipality.
That's correct. A large amount of the initial one was under our
Sure,
ICIP
yeah.
funding, so we
Sure.
did receive
Yeah.
federal and provincial already.
Yeah,
Whether we can stack, it's unlikely, but we did get another million through the province when we asked about the demolition option, and just understand we could still use that toward this.
Easy,
And that
yeah.
gives us the 5 million budget, right? I don't have the initial breakdown there, because
Yeah.
we did add some,
yeah.
but yeah.
So-
My understanding is if we approve this today, that they'll come back next week with other options that may be available to us.
Oh, good, very good, because I'm thinking just one more addendum to that. So
Sure.
in terms of the stacking, probably unlikely, you're right.
Yeah.
But I would never want to say for sure if there's a chance, right? So,
Exactly.
So thank you for coming back next week with some additional, yes, thank you.
Sharon?
Thank you, Warden Weber. I was just going to ask, but Councillor Connors sort of asked that question on what it will cost the municipality. But I realize we have other funding, so that answered my question, that
Yeah.
what we may be,
No problem. Tim's going to have a hard look for us and
yeah.
come back with the recommendation, right?
But I think the community really wants this done. I support it because I
Yeah.
think in the end, they want the trail to be connected.
That's right. The big missing piece is a condition of the inside the piers, and we were able to pull out a couple blocks and have a look, yeah.
Andre?
Thank you. I'm happy with this report. This odyssey began by way of a simple inspection report that was carried out a couple of years ago. But this latest, more thorough report kind of backs up, I think, the findings of that initial report, that the wooden part of the bridge was inadequate,
Yeah.
rotting, and the metal, the
Yeah.
steel part
The
is
bearings
in
are on,
in
yeah.
reasonable shape, but the bearings themselves at the top of the trestles had
Absolutely.
seized and in turn actually damaged a little bit at the top of
Yeah.
those piers. So that's good, because there was some concern, I think, in the public that report was then somehow flawed. I think this actually backs up the original report, which is good. I always worry, analogies don't always match up perfectly, but when you renovate a house versus build a new house,
Yeah.
you have different amounts of unknowns. And I think when we originally discussed this in council, we talked about the risk of renovating this old house, this old bridge
Yeah.
versus replacement. And I think that's what led us down the path of let's see what a new bridge would cost. We didn't know the condition of the inside of the piers at the time. It was a big unknown. How to even get to them cost us actually quite a lot of money to discover that through this report, that they appear to be in okay shape, aside from maybe some preventative improvements and some repointing and things,
Yep.
which is good. I think there probably will still be unknowns that as we move along here in this sort of a renovation. It's always it seems like the ground is always the big unknown. Once you get out of the ground and you have the full control of your destiny,
Yeah.
and then it gets better. So this proposal, I think, relies on a fairly substantial abutment on one side to reduce the span, I think, as compared, because it's, as you say, it's more symmetrical. So it brings the ground closer to the bridge so that you can make it with one span. Is that right?
Pretty much, or you could put in 3, like another pier as well for another million or so, but.
That was
just-
option 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I think the proposal here is 3, which actually brings that abutment closer, so.
Yeah, and if, Emily, you could pull toward the end of the report, there's a picture of the 2 options. Oh, yeah, right
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Yeah, So there'll be quite a bit of earthworks probably to bring that forward.
Yes.
That position. That'll be interesting by itself because, you know, the river's right there. So I presume that in our costing, we've accounted for all of the geotechnical and environmental issues that will result from
That's right, we had a
driving
lot
all
of.
that soil right up against the
Yeah.
riverbank.
Yeah, we did a lot of geotechnical already, but yeah, absolutely. But, yeah, it's more symmetrical, there's two bowstring arches on either side. And
Yeah, and those will be
Yeah.
steel going forward, so
Yep.
this concern about, you know, sort of organic building materials that are eventually gonna become a problem for future generations will go
Yeah.
away.
Yeah,
That's
and
good.
it all stays over the water still, which is important. right,
Yeah.
so.
So, you know, I'm overall, I'm okay with this, you know, I'm curious what our taxpayers, what our final bill is gonna actually end up, but I'm okay with the approach. I'm happy that we haven't had any massive revelations here. It's just more information that's allowed us to tighten up on an option, which, that's fine by me. I mean, I think we had to go through the design process for the new bridge so that we understood what its cost was.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have been guessing as well.
Yep,
So now we know the answer. So, okay. I guess that's all my commentary for this, at this time.
all right,
Abdullah?
Yeah, I was gonna mention just what Andre said about, you know, it was a process. We, you know, we had, intended to build a new bridge based on the information we had and what the cost was. And when the costs come in, it
Yeah.
didn't make sense to proceed that way unless we did revisit it.
yeah,
Glad we did, and I'll put a motion on the floor to adopt option C as recommended by staff.
Do we have a seconder? Second, moved by Asif, seconded by Bremner. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thanks, Fred.
That's what you recommended also, wasn't it, Ian? Okay.
makes sense, thank you.
Jeez, can't see. Okay, 7.2, revisions to council meeting operations, corporate and strategic management. Whatever that's all about. Yes, I forget now.
So council has expressed interest in revising the meeting operations.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, this is in relation to some recent discussions that have highlighted some challenges with the way we have our current meetings set up. So we have 2 regular council meetings a month, and they're typically held twice a month, where decisions and official decisions are made. We have a discussion in this report around the 15-minute public input session, which is at the beginning of both of those meeting agendas. And we have a discussion in this report around external presentations. Right now, they're limited to 10 minutes each, with no restriction on the number of presentations per council meeting, and no restrictions on repeat presentations on the same subject on concurrent meetings. So we did break the report up into those 3 sections, and I can just quickly go over each section. There's a bit of a jurisdictional scan attached as well, and we've also attached a proposed application form on the presentation piece for discussion. So first up is the 15-minute public input session. The jurisdictional scan attached, so we took a look at our surrounding municipalities. We have the Lunenburg County municipal units in here, as well as East Hants, Halifax, West Hants. Based on this scan, which is just these items, these municipal units only, it's about 50-50 as to what municipal units have public input sessions. Of note, the Kings, Municipality of the County of Kings, they do have a public input session, but they have it at the end of their agenda versus the beginning of the agenda. So we have some options for council's consideration. So option A would be to remove the public input session for either or both COW and council sessions. We have some pros and cons in here. So the pros is that council and staff have advance notice of topics to be discussed, which would allow for better preparation. reduces unpredictability and expectations of addressing topics with notification, and helps keep the meetings on schedule, which I think is the biggest challenge that we're facing right now with that session. Some cons, it may reduce opportunities for that spontaneity piece of public engagement, and could discourage participation from residents who prefer that less formal method of communication with council. And could lead to perceptions of reduced accessibility or transparency. If we did move forward with that option, we would make sure, in terms of communications with the public, to be very open about the other ways that the public can address council members on an informal basis, as well as a formal basis moving forward. Another option is to formalize the public input session. So we would have residents register in advance and specify the topic, and that would be it in terms of the extent of what we would ask. We could limit the speakers to 2 minutes or divide the 15 minutes equally, which is practice that we have right now. We could limit the number of speakers per meeting, or we could restrict the public input session to only the topics that are on the agenda for that particular council meeting. And then the third option would be to allow residents to participate in either the public input session or as a scheduled presenter on that particular agenda, but not both. So this has obvious efficiency impacts for that particular meeting. I won't go through the pros and cons in detail there. Did council want to discuss each item?
We should do each
Yeah.
one at a
Okay.
time. So what do we want to do? Yeah?
I'll go first. I think we should leave the 15-minute public input session on, as is. However, if someone comes up and speaks during that session, I don't think, if they have an appointment, they shouldn't be doing both. And they can't come back again, because we've been very flexible and allowed that. And it gets a little out of hand. But I don't have an issue with the 15-minute input. But I think we have to limit it to the 15 minutes. And if there's 5 members of the public that need to speak, they get 5 minutes. I would be in favor of leaving that. That's just my thoughts.
Well, they get 3 minutes if there's 5.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, Andre?
Thank you. We, in our policy, have, for scheduled speakers, or our presenters, in our policy, we allow 10 minutes, which we haven't done a very good job of keeping, holding our policy. I don't think that if a person rolls out of bed and decides to come down and address council, they should have an advantage over those that schedule their time. Should nobody else come, you have 15 minutes to address council without any opportunity for council to prepare in advance. I see that as a problem. To me, if regardless of the number of speakers, it should be no more than 5 minutes and a maximum of 3. So if there's 5, maybe they have to draw straws or decide amongst themselves who speaks, or they come back the next time, whatever it has to be. But I don't feel like you should be benefited by not providing some sort of upfront
While you're here.
appointment. Also, even I think we are owed at least the respect of providing notice the day before that you would plan to come. I mean, most people, I don't think, would roll out of bed and decide they're gonna come address council. They must know at least the day before that they're gonna do it. Maybe they don't have to provide all the materials as they would with a normal in the week before,
At least the topic.
but at least tell folks, make them know, and that would provide our staff the opportunity to provide feedback and say, okay, yes, no problem, you were the only one addressing council this day, or there are 5 others that also wanted to address council, we only have slots for 3. At least they're aware that they may not have their opportunity if we restrict it to 3 and 5 minutes. To me, this is a way of sort of like just trying to bring order to the chaos, because, sometimes we can go off track if there's something interesting that has captured the attention of the public, and we have folks coming in, we're not doing a good job of holding that time. Some of them come with a manifesto to read to us, And, you know, each one's taking 10, 15 minutes by themselves, and it just derails our meeting completely. I think we have to be very strict about this and staunch and say, if you wish to come, there's no problem. 5 minutes, if there's more than 3, somehow amongst yourselves, or we will for you decide who the 3 are, and the rest can come next time. And to me, that's a reasonable compromise. Let us know at least the day before that you're coming. I think that's pretty accessible. I mean, for government, we're government. That's pretty accessible.
Anyone else wish to speak on the topic? We gotta decide what we're doing. Nobody else wishes to, well, Tom?
Thank you, Warden. I appreciate what Councillor Vino has said, except I think more than a day, because a day would turn into 5 to 4 on the afternoon of the day before council. And I think that's an opportunity that we don't want to have happen for many reasons. But I do believe that we do owe the public the respect, and they owe us the respect to be able to give us a fair warning what the topic is and what we're going to have to consider at the time. So I like that we have to tighten it up, but they also have to follow some direction too, that we are going to work with them and they're going to work with us and go from there. So for that reason, I would appreciate the way Councillor Vino has expressed the changes that we'd have to do. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Coolin?
Thank you. What Councilor Vino has said is pointed, that if these meetings start to get out of control as far as the time frame, it's up to this table, it's up to the warden, it's up to the responsibility to control the time frame. And we all need to tighten that up. If we all do that as a collective group, instead of having several people speaking for more than the 3 minutes / 5 minute allotment. If there's 15 minutes aired, 15 minutes is only availability no matter how many people speak. I don't believe one person should speak for 15 minutes. I'm under the understanding, correct, yeah, that it's 5 cap, 3 minimum, 5 cap, whether one person presents or not. But if it goes over that time frame, apart from being, excuse me, you have a minute left or whatever, we need to tighten that up here. So we need to have that control, and we need to control that. The warden needs to control that. Thank you.
Okay, so do we want the, oh, sorry, Sharon?
Yeah, I just want to make a final comment. I do believe we should leave the 15-minute as is. However, I fully agree that we need to tighten it up, and it's either 3 to 5 minutes each, and if there were 10 people here, it's only 15 minutes, so maybe the first 5 get to speak. I don't know, but I think that the public has an opportunity to come in impromptu and say something. We don't have to engage and get into comments. We could simply say, if it's something, we'll get back to you, or, you know, we'll have to deal with it at a later time. It's not a discussion. It's their opportunity to come and say what they want. But I think we need to tighten it up. We've been very easygoing in that matter, and I think that's our responsibility to tighten it up a bit. But I like the fact that people can just come in and speak, and I think they do too. Thank you.
Councillor Church? Oh, Councillor Teen.
That's okay, it's all good, it's all good.
I'm so used to
Right,
calling
Abdallah?
you my name.
I agree with Councillor Church. I didn't give it this much thought when I was the councillor that brought forward and saw success with the addition of public input on the agenda probably 4 years ago. I don't know, I'm trying to remember now. But I'm okay with the freedom of people wanting to come in and stepping up to the mic. If I've learned anything over the last few days, coming out of the election, I'm not that restrictive. I don't want to control the dialogue. I want people to have the freedom to be able to come in. And as Councillor Church has pointed out, we don't need to dialogue. Sometimes we've done that. So piggybacking on Councillor Coolin's comments around tightening it up, I need to do that too and not dialogue necessarily. So I like the freedom. I think that until, you know, something happens that is just so such a catastrophe that we are just so aghast. But I don't want to control the dialogue like that. I'm okay with the freedom to come in and step up to the mic. I'm okay with limiting, the number of speakers if you want. keeping it to that 15 minutes and so on, but I'm okay with all of the above.
I mean, I know that we have some issues, and I've tried to tighten it up a little bit over the last little while by asking how many people and letting them know that, okay, if there's 5 of you, then this is all you got. But, I think we can do a better job on that. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, since we brought this in, I could probably count on my one hand any troubles that we've run into, I mean, there were a few most recently, but other than that, it's been a good experience. I mean, I've had residents come in from my area that ask me, like, how can we do it? I said, well, you can make it formal, or we have an open session, you can come in, 15 minutes, we allot to the public. I think it's worked well. Other than, like, as everybody said, just tighten it up a little bit. I don't think we've had any really issues with it. I mean, other than a few, but I think we can live with that. And I think anything that's to a person that that's a subject that they're really passionate about, I think they would want to be put on the agenda.
Making a point.
But not both. So I'm fine with leaving the 15 minutes and just tighten up the time frames and whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine with
And I
me.
think it's quite reasonable
Oh, yeah.
that if you already have an appointment, you have no ability to speak at the
Yeah.
15-minute session, yeah, because you already got your turn. Andre?
I want to, hopefully we'll build consensus here in a minute. But what I saw was sort of a similar agenda topic with variations coming over and over and over again. And we have a forum through our meeting format for the public to provide correspondence, which we acknowledge and we receive. So anybody can write in anytime to council if they feel really like they really want to speak to an unfolding agenda item at any time, and they will be on our agenda in correspondence, and we receive that, and that's in the record. What sort of happened when we had some topics of high interest is we ended up with certain members that sort of ended up taking this sort of like unofficial council seat at every single meeting. Same characters over and over, and we weren't limiting the time, and so we were held captive. And that, we it's like I often say at our company, we have a shareholders agreement in the case that things go bad. Most of the time, we work excellent together as owners of our company, but should everything go haywire, then we have this foundational document that tells us how we're supposed to behave. And I feel like we need that structure, and I agree with Councillor Asif that most of the time there's no issue, because on most of the time, people will come, they don't want to be here all the time. It's a big inconvenience and it's uncomfortable oftentimes for certain people, and they'll come in and they just want to, usually it's a problem, they want to tell us about something that's been bugging them. The odd time we'll actually get something like an attaboy where, they were happy with something we did. That doesn't happen very often, but it's nice when it does. But if we can limit it, I feel like, I'm somewhere in between Councillor Bremner and maybe Councillor Church, where I feel like at least the day before, so that, if there's gonna be a problem, like, for example, if there's gonna be a lot of people, or if there's gonna be, or if it's a person that's come over and over with the same, then we can speak to them in advance of the meeting. That gives an opportunity, a venue, to have that discussion offline, rather than just coming in the door and then the seat's live and you're on for 5 minutes. That's a difficult way to do that. So putting it the day before, at least a day before. I mean, most people would know if they're coming to council the day before. And just let us know also that you're coming. and, you know, restrict it to 5 minutes, whether there's 3 of you or 1 of you, and we'll hear what you have to say, and then if you, for some reason, like later on a different matter, if you want to come in and make an appointment and have a full 10 minutes and engage with council, then there's a method for that as well. To me, that gives ultimate flexibility. You can write in, you can come do the impromptu 5 minutes on a topic, or you can actually book time and engage with council. Those are excellent options. It gives excellent accessibility, I think, and it's a reasonable compromise that, you know, will hopefully get us back on track here, so we don't have bad things unfolding, and give some structure to it.
Councillor Church?
I'd add this comment that it's possible that we could just inform the public that you could come and speak to council impromptu, but, you know, maybe once a month, that you can't come in every day, that we have council on the same topic. But I like the fact that it's impromptu. Somebody may be thinking of something and just want to drop in, but I mean, I think we're aware that if it's over and over and over again, the same topic, I think you should allow the people to make an appointment and come into council. But I don't like the idea of them needing to call ahead. I think people like the impromptu, but that's just my thought. Thank you.
Well, I'm not finding an absolute consensus yet. I think you want better control over it, and I think that if people are coming all the time, that they should be informed that you should make an appointment, instead of just impromptu stepping in here, but, you know, and I've tried to ask so that I know how many and tell them that there's only, okay, there's 5 of you, each have 3 minutes, that's it. You know, I mean, and we can do a better job at that, and I can cut them off if you want me to, but, you know, but I need council to want me to. Councillor Church, then Councillor.
Well, to that, Warden Weber, I want you to cut them off. And I think we have staff here that we can time people speaking. 5 minutes is quite a long time if you're if you're speaking and have notes. So I think you have the authority to do that and should, to control the meeting. So I'd like to try that, and if it doesn't work, we can go back and look at this.
Councillor Coolin.
There's a big difference between somebody having a presentation, which is non-debatable, it's just their concerns written and read off a piece of paper. If somebody wants to have a conversation, a debatable, topical conversation with council, they need to book an appointment.
They need to book an
Right?
appointment.
So there's 2 different engagements. So if something is timed, and all I am doing is giving you a presentation, I'm reading, I gotta bring it down to 3 minutes or 5 minutes max, right? There's no topic after that. The clock stops, 5 minutes, you're done, as opposed to, I'm booking an appointment, I wish to have an engaging conversation with council.
That's
So
two
it's 2
different
different things, 2 separate things. One can be controlled very easily with a time frame, without cutting them off, saying, you have 3 minutes, may I remind you, you're at a 2.5 minute mark. Something as courteous as that, other than that, you're done. Because it just eats up our time for the debatable part of the continuation of our agenda. Thank you.
Councillor
Yeah,
Race.
I think that, I lost my train of thought. I think as counselors, we have to agree that in these public sessions, not to engage. I think that's the key. Is just, you know, they're here to do a public
Just let them say
presentation.
what they want to say.
Because I think that's where we need to just, even though I know I'm guilty of it as well, if someone comes in from my district, Tina as well, I mean, everybody, you know, you want to stand up for your people and you want to make the case, but I think the thing is, we just need to listen, let them have their say, and that's it. I think that's probably the best way for us as counselors to deal with it, in my view.
Can we really do that? That's the secret. We gotta learn to manage it ourselves.
Well, yeah, because it's partly us, because if we start asking questions, it does keep it going.
And I think, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, you're,
Yeah.
Thank you, Warden Weber. That's our control, and we can't ask after something that we want to say something, do we have questions? Because that's where it starts, the whole chaotic dialogue that gets drug out and drug out and drug out. So it is control. It's simply managing a respectful process both ways and two separate topics as we're dealing with, but we can control it. We have to do that. That's our simple answer to the whole thing. We can go around all day about it, but it's management of process.
Andre?
It sounds like, by the body language in the room here, that city council's reasonably amenable to just limiting it to, say, 5 minutes, no matter how many speakers, up to 3, it sounds like.
Yeah.
The only contentious issue is, can they just roll out of bed and decide to wander in here?
Yes.
Or
Call
to
ahead.
ask the day before, like, I'm on one side of it, because I feel like you probably know at least the day before that you're gonna come, and it's nice if they do call, then at least somebody can explain the rules of the game. You know, if you're gonna have 5 minutes and, you know, you can't continue to come over and over, and like, you were here last week and you asked to speak and now you're speaking again. You know, having that opportunity to have that discussion offline, I think is useful, because not everybody is engaged with what we're doing all the time, so, you know, if they have an agenda, they're planning to come and speak, they've got a scheduled thing, but they want to come in. To me, that's an opportunity, and just as when we have scheduled presentations, there's communication of what the expectation is. You know, I don't know how well we've policed that, that's a whole other topic too, but I think Pam tries to set forth the expectation for that. It would just give people that don't engage all the time an opportunity to know what the expectation is. You're gonna have 5 minutes, council's probably not gonna have a dialogue with you, so you'll have an opportunity to say whatever you have in 5 minutes, and then they'll take that and they'll think about it, and something might come of that, but it might not, and then at least people know the day before what to expect. That's what I see as a value in maybe just doing a call ahead. But, you know, it's not a hill for me to die on. I just feel like it's maybe something we might want to consider.
Councillor Connors?
Thank you. So I'm not sure where this is going to go in terms of an overall motion, or if we're going to break it down or not, but I just want to be clear that when it comes time for a motion, whatever that is, I am not in favor of restricting, and I know I'm hearing it around the table that people are in favor, but if there is a motion in terms of restricting it, the fact that people can't just roll out of bed and come in, I'm not in favor of that restriction. I'm not quite there yet as a dictator in terms of municipal level government. And this is, again, the forum and the platform and the opportunity and so on, so we can all think differently on that, I get that. But again, if I've not learned anything from the controlling of the discussion, so I look good, again, the last few days of the inauguration, since the inauguration, again, so I'm not there yet. So I just want to be clear on that, depending on where the motion goes, and I respect everybody else's thoughts on that, because I am hearing it around the table that they do want that, but I'm not.
Councillor Coolin?
I'm in favor of not rolling out of bed. I agree with Andre, Mr. Vino. I think that for those people who took the time, took the effort, took the means, sat down, wrote a presentation, had prepared, for preparation purposes, that was a good one, preparation purposes, and then somebody wakes up in the morning and say, I'm going to piggyback that, I'm going to bop in there, and I'm going to have a presentation of my own. I feel that as far as, this is a business, we should model it as a business. I'm not saying dictatorial business. I don't think we need to be dictators, because people have the public right to speak, and we hope that it's full every day. But I'm in favor of them having at least a day notice as to what the presentation topic is. Not that we need to defend it, but we need to have an awareness, if nothing more. Thank you.
Councillor Bremner?
Thank you, Warden Weber, to the rest of my councillors. When I review this, I think B is the option that I see as close to or consideration is as close to what we're talking about. We want some advance notification. We want to set some time limit that they speak but have the opportunity, and you may have to, as warden or warden at the time filling in, may have to control how many people speak per session. And I think that's a reasonable thing. And yes, we will have people that are frustrated. But I personally have learned that sometimes instead of just jumping off and saying what I'm thinking, I should think about it first. And I appreciate that I've not spoken at the time and that I have actually went away and thought about it and come back and said, okay, I have a different understanding now. So my option would be the consideration of B, to bring us more respect, bring us more balance, and I'll put that on the floor for, I'm going to make that a motion because I think that's where we need to go and have a discussion on that if that's possible. So I'll make that a motion.
Option B is your motion?
Yes.
Do we have a seconder? I'll second it. Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion.
Councillor Asa.
What?
Councillor Asa.
Oh, Councillor Asa?
I just, to Tommy's point, but I think it gets back to, like, if we want a day's or 2 days' notice, if we're not going to engage, which is, I think, what we discussed, not engaging in the public session, let them do their presentation, I don't see the value of knowing what they're going to talk about if we're not going to engage. To me, it doesn't make sense. Like, if we're not going to engage, so if Jonathan comes in as Joe Public and says, you know, why isn't my garbage picked up on, you know, or I don't like the fact that this stop sign is where it is, or for whatever the subject, you know, we don't get into the banter back and forth. So the knowing what they're gonna say, I don't think has value to me. If we agree not to, if we agree as council to say, let them have their say, and, you know, not engage, I think that nullifies the reason to have a week's notice, or a day's notice, or 2 days' notice. That's just the way I feel. Yep.
Mr. Rubino?
Thank you. I don't think the night, day before notice is for us to prepare a response. In fact, I think it's rather, it's an opportunity to sort of like make those those that come aware of what the sort of like the framework is. So let's say that we have a member of the public, for whatever reason, they feel very passionate about their stop sign location. And they come every chance they get, because we have no restrictions, and they speak to the stop sign every time. Every 2 weeks or whatever, every week, whatever, they come in and they speak for 5 minutes about the location of their stop sign. We have no ability to say no. We have no ability to do anything because we haven't explained up front that you can't come with the same topic. You can't over and over again. That's where the problem is. If you don't make clear the rules of engagement, then how do you expect people, like, it's all fine and good because normally people don't do that. But when you have somebody that does that, then you're in trouble. So that's why just the day before, even if it was at 4:30, called up Pam and said, I think I'm gonna come in today, I'm gonna talk about the stop sign again. Pam could say, sorry, you talked about the stop sign last week and we have a rule that says you can only bring the topic once, or whatever, or once every 6 months, or whatever we choose to do. And, or if, you know, I've got this huge report that I want to read to council and it's like 20 pages long. You have 5 minutes. And there won't be any exceptions during that unless you want to make unless you want to book an appointment to actually bring it as a presentation to council, and they may then opt to do that instead, and we would have the materials up front. You know, that's what, it's not for us then to prepare for them to come for the 5 minutes. I don't see it as that. I see it as just an opportunity to engage with them so that they understand the limitations of this impromptu session.
Thank you. Councillor Connors?
Thank you. I can't believe I'm at the mic again. I can't believe you. I can't believe you, Councillor Vino. I respect the fact that you are speaking your mind, and I respect everybody's just as I can as well right now. So I try to remind myself when I stop and get gas, when I go to the grocery store, and when I also have coffee.
Any restrictions on that?
Coffee, you know where I'm going with this, Warden Weber.
Yeah.
Coffee and conversation with your area counselor when I do that. When I promote it, open my meeting room that I book in New Ross and have it overflowing, not with people turning out to have a conversation with their counselor. I would never dare say to them, you need to let me know ahead of time what you want to talk to me about. I cannot get past that. I can't get past it, so I will be on record that this is really not my hill to die on either, but I cannot get past that. The fact that I would want to limit my community members, that's the entire municipality, because there's not that many people from my district that can make an 8:45 a.m. meeting to come out and speak for 3 minutes, right? Really. But the fact that there's that opportunity and our doors are open, and yes, this is a really highfalutin table to be sitting at, and I'm really important and sitting up straight here, but we're welcoming to the public to share with us what their concerns are. I do not, and I'm so against restricting it and telling them that they need to tell me ahead of time what they want to talk to me about. Again, hopefully that's the last time I'm talking here.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? No, I don't, it wasn't asked for. So the motion is defeated. So essentially, we're leaving it as it is, and we're going to have more restrictions. Well, well, okay, talk then. Well,
Just because we defeated the motion doesn't mean we just leave it as is. Let's
but-
drive this to some sort of conclusion. If we're not gonna have it the day before, there's other restrictions we can still place that are appropriate and we do have consensus on. You know, so I think that then if we're not gonna have it the day before, we still have to say 5 minutes and no more than 3 per day. So if you need that in a motion, we'll do it now.
well, I would need some kind of a change.
Okay, then
Just
I
read-
move that.
Moved, we have a seconder?
I don't know what the motion was, sorry.
So it's the same motion as before, except for we're not asking them to call ahead.
No, it's not it's not 15 minutes, it's 5 minutes now.
5 minutes per person.
Per
up to
person,
3.
okay.
So that makes
And
15.
up to 3 people per meeting.
Yeah, so if
Okay.
one person shows up, that doesn't mean they get 15.
They only
still
get 5. Yeah.
Because we shouldn't reward people by just.
Okay, so
showing
we'll
up.
accept 3 people per meeting, 5 minutes maximum each.
Yes. But they don't have to call ahead.
No. So that's the motion. We have a mover and a seconder?
And it's still at the beginning of the meeting. correct?
Yes.
Okay, so nothing's changed there. Okay, I'll second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. There's where we are with that one.
Thank you.
What's the next one?
Okay, the next one. Is.
This is
formal-
more complicated than spending $10 million.
So the next item is on the presentation piece, which we referenced in that discussion.
Yeah.
The current rules of procedure around presenting to council is that the public has 10 minutes. They would request a presentation through the clerk. And right now, we don't have a formal form. We have proposed a draft application so that there is a little bit more communication in terms of the expectations around booking a presentation slot.
Yeah.
So some of the ways we could change this process is we could limit the number of presentations. So right now, it's unlimited in terms of the request for people to present on a particular agenda. So that could be limited to 2 per meeting, 3 per meeting. There is one item for discussion as well, or for consideration, that if council does go in the direction of limiting the number of presentations, grant presentations tend to hit the council agenda in February, March of every year. So if council would also want to consider making an exception when it comes to grants, that could be
Well, they need to do
implemented.
those,
Yep. So possible outcomes, some other municipal units go a step further when a request for presenting is put forward. So they could be referred to a different committee or a different group. They could be determined that council's only accepting written submissions on that particular topic that they've applied to present on. Or if the subject matter is outside the jurisdiction of municipal government, they could be denied a presentation and then referred to the appropriate government for that particular item. I think on that, that was all the points that I wanted to bring up, except the draft. I don't know if you wanted me to go through the draft application form, like some of the items that as staff, like administratively, we would like to add in here a preferred date. So if we are restricting the number of presentations per council meeting, council may, they would put forward a preferred date, and we may or may not be able to accommodate that, but could communicate another date for council. We right now have council presentations on the COW meetings as well as the council meetings. So we may want to discuss whether or not we want to move forward with that as well. And we would need, after a change, we would need 14 days of notice, so that there is a significant amount of time that the particular person would need to be prepared, right? So 2 weeks in order to get the material and add it into the agenda would be required, yes. And to speak on the engagement piece of the presentation, so right now, the kind of rules of order are 10 minutes to present, and then around 5 minutes for council to ask questions, but that would be open to council's discretion as to how long that is. The debate is still not recommended in this section. It would be council to ask questions and get answers, which can be a bit of a slippery slope into the questions then coming back at council. So we would be clear on the application form as well that this is not considered to be a debate for the particular presenter, but for them to present their topic and have council give the opportunity to ask questions.
Councillor Asif?
Yeah, I mean, I defer to staff a little bit on this, but I know the 8 years that I've been here, I can't remember having any issues with the number of presenters in a meeting. Now, I don't know staff, if that was an issue with staff, like to have that many presentations. I mean, I don't remember that being an issue of limiting the amount of presentations or have they run into that? I don't know.
So generally, I would say it's not too much of an issue, but there have been times where it's been an issue, and we didn't have the ability to say no to somebody
Okay.
or limit the number because we already had a very large agenda, and so people will request a specific date, and we already know there's a very large agenda, so it does help us to have those guidelines to say 2 or 3 per meeting, or maybe it's 2 per meeting, and if somebody wants to add a third, they have to make the request to council specific. But whatever that might be, there have been situations where we haven't felt that we have the tools to say no.
Thanks for that, Tara. That's, yeah.
Councillor Beano?
Oh, so much to unpack. So whether a presenter comes to our committee of the whole or council should be specific to the topic. Committee of the whole has been abused. Nobody knows what it is, and that's on our agenda today to talk about. I can't wait. But you know, the idea is that these are for deep topics that require a lot of thought, and you know, we can talk about it with our presenter and amongst ourselves, and then we'll go away, and we still have an opportunity at council to talk about it again. That's the point of it. So I think that would be sort of in the spirit of that. Somehow we have to capture our presenters. Based on our track record that I've been here, I have very little faith that we'll do a good job of that. Because it doesn't seem like if you recall, last committee of the whole, we discussed porta potties. Which doesn't seem like we would need to have a lot of deliberation about. So that's just an illustration of how abusive we are of the committee of the whole. We use it for topics that are completely inappropriate and do not require a lot of deep thought. That would be, I think, one criteria that we would use for where we put folks. We have to strictly limit their presentations to 10 minutes unless it's by some sort of special approval of council, I feel like, or you know, maybe even by email, just build some consensus from council. You missed it. It was riveting, but I was hostage for over an hour listening to a presentation from a delegation one time on smart Christmas trees. where Christmas trees would hold their needles for longer than regular trees. And that topic, oh yes, it's burned into my memory. I will die with that memory. And it was more than an hour I spent listening to this information at council. And I think that one definitely could have been limited to 10 minutes, but we didn't. And I believe that was one of the ones, that council ran very long, obviously. So putting strict controls and making that requirement known upfront, I think is of paramount importance. You know, again, this is a government, and you know, we shouldn't just be hostage to, you can come in and you could just talk all day. That can't happen anymore. So I definitely am in favor of continuing on and having people, and I think that we need to, you know, I think that the amount of delegations we take should be proportional to the anticipated end of agenda. So, you know, if we have a light agenda and there are
you can add more.
five presentations that are gonna come in at 10 minutes each, fine. But if we have a lot of material to cover, then I think then that we should empower staff to say, sorry, you're gonna have to wait
Till the
another
next
couple
week,
weeks. And that's, I think, completely reasonable, you know.
We've kind of done that on occasion anyway. Councillor Bremner.
Thank you, Warden Weber, and thank you, Councillor Vino. I've all of a sudden got a new respect for you. How you like Christmas trees. Yeah, thank you. And you were honest in saying there's a lot to unfold here, and I was writing frantically as Erin was presenting her thing. I do think we have to have a draft application, what we're facing or what we're dealing with. And I think the time frame before that is reasonable to make sure that happens. Presentations, I'm kind of stuck that we should have a limit, 10 minutes each, with 5 minutes for us to ask questions back maybe would be reasonable, with the exception of grants. I do believe we should be directing people to the appropriate agency if they're filing something with us that we have no control over or no say, or we should be partnering with most, which I understand, but there are topics that aren't ours, which meeting we deal with. I think that's important, which one or how we balance that, because if we don't, we're just in free-for-all again in all situations. And as we note, we will be talking about the COW meetings after a bit. So I think those are the important points that I picked out of it, and I would like to see us tighten it up a little bit as well as the other session that we just passed. So I would be in favor of making changes to make sure we control it and balance it and do that respect. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on the issue? Well, I get that we want more control, and limiting the number of council meetings based on the agenda is obviously, I mean, I know that we have done that in the past. Say, I've told people that you'd be better off if you were on the next agenda because we got too much on this one, you know, like, and maybe we could formalize that to some degree. But I mean, you know, and I don't know, I'm not sure I got any clear direction from what council wants to do, other than we want to maintain control over it, that's for sure.
Well, I think that we should empower our staff to vet some of the presentations. I mean, you know, some presentations come, and as it was mentioned in the report here, that, you know, they're not actually asking anything of us.
No.
It's, you know, they're in a dispute with whatever, some federal issue, Canada Post or something like that, and they don't like the placement of their mailboxes, or, you know, and they come and do a presentation to us. Well, I mean, but there's no ask. You know, they're not even asking for a letter of support. They're just like making us aware. You know, that we should be encouraging these people just to write in, just to, you know, and it's in the record. We don't need to consume 15 minutes of our meeting time to talk about an issue that we have no authority over and no ability to really influence the outcome. Just my take on it. I don't know how we do that exactly, but I mean, you know, we have our wheelhouse of things that we have responsibility for. This is not the catch-all for anything that you think up that you don't like.
Yeah, I think it's easy enough for us to restrict people from coming in who are speaking on topics that we have no authority of. Where it might get a little complicated is where they think we should be taking authority of, you know, it. Yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Connors.
Oh, Councillor Connors, yeah.
Thank
Sorry.
you. So there's not a lot of changes here for me. I'm just going to try to unpack it. So, except for the 14 days, because it always was 7 days, for what I could recollect, in terms of letting people know that they had to request a meeting time agenda was 7 days ahead. So now that, I think that might be the only change for me. So it's 14 days. They typically send us their copy of their PowerPoint and their presentation. So that, to me, would serve as the form, I guess, see attached almost. I've always indicated to the groups 15 minutes in total. I've indicated, though, that they could use that 15 minutes however they wanted. If they used it all up in talking, they wouldn't have any dialogue with council, is what I've told my groups. So I might have been wrong in that. So it's 15 minutes. It's not 7 days, it's 14 now. So I think I'm okay with everything that we've talked about. I have no problem. There's nothing here that's going to, get me upset. I will say, though, in terms of the presentations for which we have no authority, would that mean that I would have missed out on that phenomenal presentation regarding Bayswater Beach and the odor and the like? Because I really got a lot out of that presentation that day. That's in your area, isn't it, Councillor Vino? So I would have missed out on that. And I know that there was a professor from Acadia that was brought in to speak, and there are residents.
I know, people come in and make presentations because they're trying to encourage council to get involved in solving a problem that's outside of their
So
jurisdiction.
you're getting what
there's lots of reasons
You're
why.
getting what I'm saying,
Yeah.
Warden Weber. I really enjoyed and learned from that presentation that day. So thank you.
Yeah.
I like the,
It's on,
yeah, I like the idea of, and that's why I asked the question about staff, because to Andre's point, I would like the staff to vet some of this stuff. I think you have the ability to do that. And I think that's where the only thing that I would change. I mean, I'm fine with whatever change you want to do, but I like the idea of having staff have a little more
Flexibility.
just to look at what's coming in and vet it that way. I have confidence in staff to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how the other councillors feel, but I do.
So the application form would, I think,
Help.
address, I think that's what, I think having an application form, if council is comfortable with that, would help
Yeah.
address some of these concerns, like a little informally,
Sure.
right? Like, we wouldn't put a heavy restriction on those items, but we would have time, if it's 14 days before the agenda before it hits council's agenda, that it would give us time then to kind of vet some of that out from a staffing side.
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of getting that we're all comfortable with the 15 minutes. We're all comfortable with the 14 days. We're all comfortable with them filling out the application. And I think that in an informal sense, that we're all comfortable with staff saying, geez, there's too many things, try to move it. Would it work for you the next meeting instead?
Yeah, I think most of our concerns are around us not actually adhering to our own policy. And, if we have the form, we may add a field in there so that they can explain how it is that their presentation relates to municipal government. So that they maybe do a little thinking about that themselves if they're gonna come in.
Okay, we could add that to the application form. Yeah, but I do know that people come in because they want us to get involved in trying to help them fix problems that aren't ours. Okay, so we're all comfortable with that, so we're,
Councillor
oh, sorry, Councilor.
So the 15 minutes is 10 for the presentation? and 5.
Five
So
for
we're-
us.
So we're gonna tell our people that you have 10 minutes for your
Yeah.
presentation, and the other 5 is
Tell
allotted.
ourselves that we have 5
And
minutes.
we have 5, okay, thank you. It's not 15 minutes of a presentation, it encompasses both ends. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Great, perfect.
So do we want a motion on that particular? Well, I can say,
I think for all of this, we're looking for direction today, and we're gonna.
Then you'll bring
probably
something
come
back.
back with some more formal, we'll need some amendments potentially to the policy, so.
okay, okay. Next,
Okay, the final item is the discussion around potentially reducing the number of committee of whole meetings, and then further distinguishing those from council meetings in terms of the agenda piece. So some considerations for council would be to reduce the number to one Cal meeting instead of 2. There was some discussion around changing the name of a committee of the whole to a discussion session. There are some implications around that. Discussion sessions tend to be the direction piece, so council giving direction happens in a committee of the whole meeting. In a discussion session, it would be about educating council on a particular item and having
Those are our
discussion.
workshops.
So we'd have to be careful not to have direction given within the discussion sessions. Those would be in a committee of the whole session. So just for council's consideration there. We could focus the agenda on 1 or 2 topics. In particular, Councilor Reno mentioned like particular topics that require that more deeper discussion would still be open to the public. We could not live stream committee of the whole, but as to keep the transparency, keep formal minutes for committee of the whole, or council could choose to maintain the live stream function. Some municipality of the County of Kings, when it comes to public presentations, that is also up for discussion as well. Would council want to, 2 items, maintain the 15 public input session at the committee of the whole meetings and the public presentation section of the committee of the whole meetings. So the presentation piece could be specific to those topics. It could be limited to those topics. It could be a consultant coming in and presenting on a particular item on the agenda. Municipality of the County of Kings allows community groups and organizations to come in and educate council on what's happening, whether it's related to the topic on the agenda or not. And there'd be no, as is now, we do pass motions, we tend to pass motions in committee of the whole now, so that could maintain. If it was a discussion session, there would definitely be no motions passed. And then there was an item in here, this reported and fixed, it was before we moved back to daytime meetings. But another way to distinguish it is the timing of the committee of the whole meeting versus the council meetings. You could change that up. It doesn't have to be on Thursday mornings at 8:45. It could be at a different time of the week or a different day. And you could think about having them as scheduled on a regular basis or as required. There are some municipalities that don't have them on a regular basis, so I'll now open the floor to council for discussion.
Councilor Reno.
Okay. 12 years in the making. So, in terms of committee of the whole, let's just start, like, there's the gantry of potential improvements we could discuss. Well, one, I feel like both for staff, for counselors, some counselors, and the public, they can't distinguish them from council. They don't know the difference. They look and feel and smell even the same. And the format is the same. We're making motions. If you were a person that doesn't engage with municipal government, like on a frequent basis, you would not be able to tell the difference, really. Aside from at the top of the sheet, everything appears to be exactly the same. That is a problem that is deeply ingrained here. I would say that by Councillor Asaph's own admission, he didn't even truly understand the difference between them. And, you know, part of the problem is making motions in committee of the whole. It's almost like there's supposed to be topics of deep, like, importance that require a lot of thought. And then at the end of one presentation, we're already deciding, in almost all cases, a direction. So we're like bypassing the whole point of having this extra session, because we're kind of almost deciding at the end of that, like, oh yeah, we're probably gonna go this way. And instead of actually taking the time and thinking about it and talking to people in our communities and coming back to a council later and then nailing it down. So I don't like that we have a committee of the whole meeting. I think it's an antique from like a way of doing things from a time long ago. And a more modern way would be to have a policy meeting where we talk about broader topics with no expectation of a decision. You know, things like on our agenda today, like potential for a new building, a new municipal building, or a big, like these are huge investment that's gonna, gonna impact our community for generations, It could come to a decision in one meeting, sort of thing. I realize in this case, it's been floated around a couple times,
Not
for
first.
example, but Gold River Bridge is maybe a better one. So I would actually prefer to abandon even the name of committee of the whole and actually create just a committee meeting, like we can call it anything we want, but a policy and strategic meeting or whatever we wanted to call it, but it would be a policy meeting where we talk about broader topics with no expectation of a decision. And in that sort of format, you wouldn't expect to have presentations from the public on random topics, no smart trees. We would be talking about, a presentation that may be related, like if there was a huge development proposed outside Hubbard's, for example, and it required maybe a DA or something like that. That would be an opportunity for them to provide information, because it may drive infrastructure investment or something like that. So it would give an opportunity for staff and potentially the developer a forum to come and speak to council with no expectation of a decision that day, but just to plant the seed, let us think about it, and then at some future council, it would actually come with reports and decisions to be made. This is a modern format, I think, that we should be moving towards. So for those reasons, I would be very much in favor of that sort of format and moving away from this sort of duplicate council thing that we have now. Now, our very last CAL meeting, Committee of the Whole, we had info on MGA amendments, sewage sewer shed in Chester Basin Extension, and a discussion about porta potties. Seems hardly the topics that would require sober second thought. So obviously, neither staff nor this council understand what a cow is for. And how would we ever expect the public then to understand it? So those are my comments for now.
Okay, I don't have any problem with switching it to information sessions or whatever we want. The name means nothing to me. I mean, I get it, but an awful lot of the times, and I guess is what I don't want to forget, is that strategic planning sessions work even better, quite frankly, to me, but a lot of times before it ever gets to council, we do have to tell staff, give them some direction on what it is we're looking for before we make a decision. So, I mean, I want to still be able to do that in some fashion. Yeah, so I mean, and you don't need a motion, because a lot of times consensus is perfect. Like as long as we can agree that this is what we want to hear, staff do this report before you bring it back to council, But I mean, I agree, a lot of that stuff that was on the agenda the last time, it was a given anyway. So it sort of just showed up on the council agenda. Does that mean we should have more council agendas and just, I don't care what you call the other meeting once a month, or? I mean, I get that we need informal discussion about a lot of things before it ever gets to council, and, we have a pile of stuff on the agenda.
Well, our policy doesn't speak to committee of the whole, or at least our bylaws don't.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry I'm cutting you off. I feel like this is back and forth on my first volley, so.
I wasn't paying attention either.
But, you know, our bylaws are silent, kind of silent on committee of the whole. It only speaks to the requirement for council to be held twice per month, and it specifies which days. So there's no requirement for us to maintain a strict schedule. And, you know, if we had a lot of, like, really deep, big, exciting topics that are gonna require extra thought, I have no problem scheduling a planning or a discussion or a
Whatever.
policy meeting once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month. I really don't care. We would do, I think we could call them as required.
Yeah.
That's really not an issue for me. As long as when we go, we're not, like last time in Committee of the Whole, I feel like we had that meeting just because, you know, it was Thursday. Well, that doesn't seem like a good reason to call a meeting because it's Thursday. You know, and that's what happened, obviously. So, you know, this would actually force us when we meet to talk about things of importance rather than just things that are hanging around because it's Thursday, so.
Okay, I got 3 green mics, and I don't remember who was on first.
Counselor Isaf.
Asa, okay?
Yeah, I'm glad, as we discussed, I'm here, and I really, if my understanding of Cal is a chamber of sober second thought, like the Senate is in the federal government, it's a useless tool to me. If that's what Cal is all about, if that's what I understand, I agree with Andre. Now, how we do it, or what, you know, if someone could explain to me, you know, as Andre did, like, those 3 things that we had at Cal, could they be addressed at council?
Yes.
So I think, to Andre's point, we want to streamline our, you know, these are, like you say, to me, I didn't even, and I'll admit it openly, that I didn't know what the difference between Cal was and council. I just thought they were, you know, and I'm glad that this was brought forward, because, perfectly honest, I was embarrassed to say that I didn't know. And, you know, as a counselor, I probably should have known, but it seemed redundant to me, but who am I? I mean, this is the way things are done, and I wasn't really familiar to make an argument so eloquently as Andre did. By the way, I know you'd like to hear that, Andre. But I agree. I agree that we need to streamline it in some way. And I'll leave that with staff. I mean, they know the more the intricacies of Cal than I do. So that's all I have to say.
So the only mic I see on now is Tina's. Did you guys all turn yours on? Okay. Tina?
Thank you. I'm agreeing with the discussion. I think it makes sense, and it's a little easier in terms of the conversations with members of the public. The only differentiation for me was when I talk to my groups and they come in to present, or they know that there's going to be a discussion and something's approved at COW, it's not official until the following week when the motion's approved, is how I would explain it to anybody that has the interest. I like the, again, this is getting in the weeds now, but stealing from another municipal unit in terms of a committee name, I like policy and strategy committee meeting. I like that name, policy and strategy. Andre's used the word policy, and Alan, you've used the word strategy or strategic, so I like that, but I'm stealing that from a neighboring municipal unit.
Yeah.
So.
Councilor Bremner?
Thank you, Warden Weber. I'm going to go in the weeds here. The big thing is we don't want motions at these formal, what we call COW meetings. And if you bring anything in about policy and that, I'm concerned we're going to start talking about motions again. Calling it a discussion session clearly states discussion session. Discussion information session, perfect for me, in my personal opinion. Live stream for me is important. I think the public should see transparency, what we do, how we do it, what we talk about, where we're at. I'm going to fire one out in the weeds. I think that's the opportunity for our deputy warden to have some experience in the chair as a leader of an opportunity for us to consider. And I would like to see us do it as a required discussion on staffs, because if I remember right, and I may look at our CAO, staff gets overwhelmed every time they have to continue and continue and continue every week. It gives them a little opportunity if we see, like Councilor Vino said, a week that we really don't need to have an opportunity just to gather to say hello to each other. And for those reasons, those 4 or 5 things, if we could combine that all in, I think we clarify up all the issues we've been dealing with and making mistakes ourselves, give the public some clarity, and give our council an opportunity to have some changes of modern opportunity that's so important, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, so it seems there's a bit of a consensus that we just get rid of the cow in terms of its the way we're doing it now, and have I don't care whether we call it strategic planning, policy, whatever. I mean, and we'll have those based on the need. And, you know, I mean, like, sometimes we need to have a broader discussion of which path we want to go down, so that staff have some reasonable idea what kind of documents to prepare for us before it ever comes to council. So but there seems to be a consensus on doing that. So are we going to stick to the 2 council meetings a month? Yeah?
You're on.
Yeah, you're
I think the council meeting themselves they're fine when they're, because, you know, that's our decision-making body.
yeah.
And there's no problem with that. Our bylaw wouldn't have to change. Some policy, I think, around what this information meeting or
Whatever you want to call it.
what this meeting is, we may need that. You know, we shouldn't be bashful about, I have no problem with the live stream. It does sometimes, in some cases, it may create a little bit of, like, if we have, like, say, a sensitive development that's being proposed, or something new that we've learned of, that hasn't been, like from the federal or provincial government, that hasn't been maybe widely distributed yet. It may limit those opportunities to speak openly, but I have no problem with it in general. So if we want to live stream that, that's no problem. I don't see any issue with that whatsoever. I think we shouldn't be bashful about canceling a discussion meeting if we don't have those rich topics to
Oh,
discuss.
if there's nothing to talk about.
You know, fewer frivolous meetings is better for the taxpayer. You know, a meeting like this that we're having today, we have our most expensive staff are here to support us in these meetings. They're very expensive meetings, each one costs thousands of dollars. You know, if we can reduce those number of frivolous meetings, I think the taxpayer won't be angry with us, they'll be happy. So, you know, I have no issue with anything that Councillor Bremner has proposed up till now.
Okay, so you want to go back and, okay,
Yep.
on that. Okay, good. That's it for your report? We're taking a 10-minute break. Oh, so
Question, so when we do these changes, do we have to go through the municipal affairs or anything, or is that
No.
just? Okay.
no,
that's
that's
fine. Right?
our decision to
That's
make.
our decision.
Anybody uncomfortable taking 10-minute break? Okay, we're live. We're calling the meeting back to order. And we're on to 7.3, which shouldn't be too complex, but whatever. No, I shouldn't say anything, no. Yeah.
Okay.
we said so.
So this is an information report for council, and we wanted to get in front of council at the beginning of the term. This is in relation to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference and Trade Show, which is held each year. So typically, we have, the last time the conference was held in Halifax, it was agreed that all councillors would attend. So we have a Halifax item coming up in 2027. The practice before that, at the beginning of a term, council would discuss a rotation and decide which councillors would attend. So generally, it's 2 councillors and the warden who attend the FCM conference. So we're looking at, the one coming up this year is May 29th to June 1st in Ottawa. So for council's discussion and consideration, we don't need a decision today because this is Cal, but just perhaps we'll need some direction in terms of looking for flights and accommodations, particularly coming up for this conference.
Yeah, so I guess in Ottawa, I mean, you know, it's, what we are attempt to do is make sure that every councillor gets to attend them. And, you know, during COVID, of course, that changed, and so that we ended up sending more people after COVID because they didn't get an opportunity to go. But those, you can't control that kind of stuff, you know. And then if it's in Halifax, well, then that makes it easy for everybody to go just because it's a local conference and whatever. So I guess the real question is, if you don't want to change it, who is it wants to go to Ottawa? Or do we have 2 people that want to go? Councillor, cool.
Thank you, Warden. I would love to go to Ottawa, May 29th to June 1st,
Okay.
to the conference.
Do we have another person who wants to go? I mean, to Ottawa? I mean, I try to attend. On occasion, I haven't been able to, so I've sent the deputy warden, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, shucks,
Yes.
if nobody will go, I'll go.
Well, Tina had her,
No,
oh, you didn't?
It's not to go, it's a comment.
Oh,
Certainly,
okay.
so certainly. So my comment is, just so you know, I'm not interested in any except for Halifax. I attended one FCM in my 12 years, and that was, no, I'm sorry, I lied. I attended 2, one in Edmonton and one in the province of Nova Scotia. And similar to it's personal, that's all. Similar to NSFM, I find that the gain that I receive from representing my community and representing my municipality are the connections, the communications, the opportunities to discuss solutions and revenue generation opportunities for my groups and businesses, and I get more out of local conversations. I'm sorry, that's just me, and so therefore I still put a lot of faith in the Halifax Federal Conference, similar to the fact that I absolutely love my NSFM conferences. So for me, take me off the list for any of them outside of Nova Scotia.
Okay. So who else wanted to go to Ottawa?
Councillor Urbino had his.
Councillor Vino had, oh, I'm sorry.
I've thought about this actually many times over the, not specifically to this conference agenda, but that council's only opportunities for what I guess pursuing education is through conference offerings, really. That's what we've got, that's what my experience has been in 12 years, and that's, I think part of the problem is that you get, let's say we're to select, oh, you know, Councillor Coolin goes to Ottawa this year, maybe Councillor Church goes to Edmonton, but we don't even know the agendas.
Well,
And they don't, and you know, it's good. I think it's a good experience for new councillors to go out and experience the FCM. I would encourage both of our new councillors to do so, because it does, actually, that by itself is an interesting, I don't know, I'm pretty antisocial, so, you know, I can't say that I engage with a lot of folks there, but it is certainly, a bit of an eye-opener when you see actually how that, like the volume of municipalities that we have that are engaged with this FCM, which is kind of like a lobby group. So that's interesting by itself, but it does bother me a bit that we're restricted to, as counselors, to going to NSFM conferences or FCMs. That's really what if we're to spend monies to improve ourselves as counselors, that's really that's what we're limited to, and often what we're so-called learning at these conferences is governed by others. We don't really have a say. So should we go to NSFM? Whatever's on the agenda, that's what we're going to be spending taxpayer money on to learn about, whether it's beneficial or not. And I would like, at some point, I think I may have raised this once in the past, or maybe I just thought about it,
Other
an actual
educational
budget for individual counselors, and then they can choose whether they wish to participate, save up all of your training budget and go to an FCM and abandon this practice of just picking out of a hat who goes where. Maybe there's maybe the Edmonton conference is a terrific agenda, and we want to, there's a bunch of us that want to participate because we want to learn about that. And maybe we would rather contribute our educational money towards that rather than, going to a bunch of other conferences that are crappy and we get very little value from it. It just seems like that would be a better use of taxpayer money personally, and maybe there are no conferences. Maybe I'd rather take a course online from University of wherever, Nebraska, that's that is on municipal government or something like that. That may be, to me, that may be a better use of taxpayer money. So this very innocent little item on our committee of the whole agenda, to me, begs a broader question of, how, like our practice, it's not policy, our practice of just sending counselors and we've done draw straws and all that stuff, but it really, whatever straw I draw for whatever conference I go to, that doesn't mean that actually it's made it in any way to my growth as a counselor, and I find that disconnect a bit of a problem.
Well, I mean, we can, like if nobody wants to go to Ottawa, Halifax, whatever, and everybody wants to go to Edmonton, then that's fine. We're just trying to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity. And the other question about the educational opportunities, I think that's something we should take a look at. It's kind of a separate topic, but I think that we should provide the opportunity.
Yeah, I think that in staff's educational budget, conferences are part of it, but the benefit they have is they can seek out the conferences that are actually most appropriate. In our way of doing it, our practice has basically been luck driven. So maybe my straw gets drawn for a certain conference, and hopefully whatever the content is, that they're going to learn something from it, because I don't really get a say, and that's how we've been doing it up till this point. So it drives a broader discussion, I think.
Yeah, but a lot of these, like like you say, we don't know what the agenda is, so it's very difficult to determine which ones you want to go to. Now, mind you, I do get stuff from FCM asking for agenda items and so you do get to participate in what the agenda's going to be, if you want to.
Councillor Church was next.
Oh, Councillor Church was next? Yes, okay.
Yes, thank you, Warden Weber. And I was going to mention how we did it before by drawing straws, but Councillor Vino mentioned that, which isn't always the best way.
No, but-
And we don't get the agendas ahead of time. I would like to go to Edmonton, but it's just, that's a personal thing. I'd go to all of them, but I understand everybody needs to take a turn. So
Well, we want to make sure that everybody
everybody
has the
gets to
opportunity.
one, so.
Well, if you want to pick Edmonton now, that's fine with me. I don't care. They need to make the arrangements, that's all. And the Ottawa one's the one that we need to make the arrangements the quickest.
Councillor Coolin.
Councillor Coolin?
Oh, thank you. Being a new counselor, I'm not sat here as long as you all, so I would like to get any orientation, any information session that I can, get it under my belt, get it in my brain, hopefully I can retain it. I know when we were gone for Weston for four straight days, and then went to Truro, I mean, there's a lot of orientation on the onset. I've never been to this set meeting. Would the exact same items be presented in Edmonton and then repeated again in Halifax? Right? So I feel that I'll go to anything, you know, if it's a matter of learning, just to define the acronyms, if nothing more. I'm really trying, my best to take any opportunity I can to learn.
We don't have to pick who goes to each one right now. We just need to know mostly who's going to Ottawa. Yeah.
Councillor Connors was next.
Councillor Connors is next.
Certainly. Thank you. So I believe that the opportunity was always on the table too as well, wasn't it, Warden Weber? That if we did not attend FCM, we could choose by looking at the sustainability conference. It's also through FCM.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
I did that prior to the March conference, the sustainability conference through FCM that was held out of province, I think at West. But I looked at the agenda, and I'm looking at it right now, I just called it up for interest. So I believe that was always an offer as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not only that, I mean, we can, if the sustainability conference is of great interest to a variety of people, we can send them. It's just
Sure.
that we have to decide that once we,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And also too, I just want to mention, I completely agree with Councillor Vino in terms of the suggestion on the table or for future discussions, professional development budget or
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
whatever we might call that. I really do have an appetite for that. One last comment is, I did put forward to council early days for me to attend, if it was a desire and the will of the council at the time, and you said yes, the council at the time, to attend, of all things, Communities in Bloom Conference. It was held in Nova Scotia at the time. It was in Yarmouth, and I got things, I took away from that conference to this day that I'm able to rely on. And some may giggle about it, but, it's around community beautification. I've been able to work with my community groups as well as my businesses in terms of opportunities, mostly around funding and making things happen, and again, creative solutioning and opportunities to move projects forward in my community. And I really, really appreciated being able to, and I didn't know how much I would until I was there and had my drive home and got to deflect and also go back in my information on that. And that was many moons ago. So I just wanted to say that's another push for having that professional development opportunity that we would want to define for ourselves.
yeah. And we've always had, conferences, workshops,
community.
whatever, that take place like that, where people have asked whether they could go, and we've generally speaking said yes,
Councillor Issa.
Asa first, and then,
I like the idea of the two new councillors going to Ottawa. I think that's great. I mean, I had this mindset, not so much with the FCM, but some of the NSFM conferences, there are times when I'm thinking, like, what am I doing here? And I got such a great response from, and then this just, like, I had some trouble with the streetlight program. And lo and behold, at the conference last year, in the booth set up, NSF, Nova Scotia Power was there. And I thought, here's my chance, and I said, I didn't go to any other booth. I sat and talked to this lady, and I said, here's my situation. This has been going on a year and a half. There's so much confusion, and she said, well, she gave me her card. I called her the Monday. It was addressed within 2 weeks. And from that, I've helped, or in the process of helping Sharon with that contact.
so
Some
you
other
meet the right people sometimes.
Yeah, and that's all it takes. And that really, really opened my eyes up to thinking, this has value for me, especially the NSFM. And you do get some other stuff from the NSFM, but to me, that was worth every conference that I went to that I thought, like, I really didn't get a lot out of this. So that I just, for you guys, that's, maybe just that one
Might
moment.
meet the right person.
That made a whole lot of difference. And she was just the right contact, and that's all it took. And I've contacted her several times on other issues. Quick.
Okay, Andre?
Just finally, just to recap, my position on this. I just hope that, because we're gonna be going into budget discussions in 2 months, and I hope that staff will hear this or hear the echoes of this meeting and then maybe add whatever, a few $1,000s in the budgets per counselor so that we can already have pre-planned for some sort of education and not necessarily restricted to certain conferences on
No.
certain days.
I agree.
And further, you know, I hope that, you know, like our practice of sending one and whatever, like, you know, I would have no grievance with our new counselors going to all of these, frankly. I have no issue with that. Like, if you feel like it's value, you go, you guys, do the two of you, if you wish, go to Ottawa and you think that there's value and you could take more out of it, go to the next one, because, you know, I've been to a few. Lord knows Alan's been probably to 40.
Quite a few, yeah.
So, I mean, you're gonna get a lot more out of it than those that have been to many, so, you know, I have no problem with that.
Okay, so they'll put a piece in, oh, no, sorry, Councillor Coolin.
Just one more point. Adela, you said that, you sat there, thinking, why am I here? I'm not getting anything. There's a difference in sitting in your seat for your 8 years as opposed to me sitting in my seat for several weeks, basically. When those conferences started, I was like a child at school, like all eyes, listening to every conversation, scratching stuff down, trying to learn, trying to keep up with the learning process of it all, right? Meeting people in the booths and whatnot. I had no problem socializing there. I mean, that is one of my niche. I get no problem talking to a stranger. So I met every booth. I've talked to every booth. But I feel like I'm so green. I feel like I'm sitting in this chair and I'm trying to represent. I have to remember why I'm here. I'm here to represent, 1,600 people, from the District of 2. But I also want to represent them well. And the more education I can get, whether I retain it, because there was so much flooding in during those first several weeks here sitting at Chambers that I'm for, like I said, any information I can get, I'll take it.
Okay.
Count me in. Thank you very much.
So you will add some kind of a budget item for educational opportunities for councillors?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're on to, I thought this last one, new building options.
It shouldn't take long. Could you just pass those around? These are just cheat, and so it's just a cheat sheet to refer to as I'm going through these things. It's just an aide memoir. So. Okay. So if we could move the slide on, that's it, to that one there. So this is essentially a follow-up to the discussion that was had on Tuesday, which I'm thankful that most of the council members were able to attend. I don't want to sort of repeat it because it was a fairly in-depth discussion about the Accessibility Act and then the accessibility audit that took place back in 2022. But it's basically saying that what we need to do, what it's recommending we do, the work that we have done to date, and sort of larger items that it's making recommendations for us to do with larger budgetary attachments to them. If we could just move on to the next slide, please, and the next, and the next. So what I really want to do this morning, this presentation is split into two essentially. And the first issue, or the first section is based on our current state with what we have, and then the second section goes into the options and estimated costs, and I stress the word estimated there, as we all know. So in terms of operational issues that we're facing, again, there's nothing here that's going to be strange or startling to anybody. But we have no dedicated public works depot to store vehicles, equipment and materials. The general storage is beyond capacity to the point where we actually have off-site storage rented to house files. No capacity for additional future staff, multiple entries leading to customer service fragmentation, and minimal current security measures to protect the staff when the public do come and visit and make sort of ask for information and guidance. What we did about 18 months ago, we did a jurisdictional scan. We visited our colleagues in Modal, Kings and Argyll. The reason being is that they had recently completed the construction of their new administrative buildings. Now they do have, there's various sizes. They're a varied group from Modal, which is sort of a reasonably high or higher population base than we have, to Argyll, which is a lot smaller. And these slide here and the next slide just gives you a snapshot as to what the size of it, the size of the lot that they needed, the number of staff that they currently have, parking bays, the costs, whether they were 1 or 2 stories and all that kind of stuff. So really the benefit for us there is just to see what others did and how it worked for them, and not least to say the costs associated with those. On the this slide here, I've shown the economies of scale. So Argyll being the smallest of the 3 studies that we undertook, it's actually per square foot the most expensive, and that's to be expected. The Modal is middle, and Kings, with it being the largest, is the lowest. So those are not that. We're pleased that those numbers are sort of congruent with what we expected. Still, they're quite healthy numbers per square foot, so they range from just short of 800 square foot for Argyll to just over 650 square foot for Kings. We also note that both Kings and Modal have reported that they've actually reached staff capacity already. So whilst they banked on growth, their growth forecasts when they originally started the project have already been achieved. So they're utilising areas within the building which were originally designated for community use. They're having to sort of redesignate those as office space as we understand it today. And just as a couple of illustrations of the buildings that have been built as a result of those projects and the jurisdictional scan, I should say. So starting with Argyll, the Modal building, and then over to King's building. So our current state here in Municipality of the District of Chester is that we have 2 functioning buildings situated on 4 separate lots where we currently are. We have 47 parking bays, 5 of which are accessible. The pictures showing the parking, that was on a Wednesday, obviously before winter kicked in. So you can see just on a regular work day, the parking lot is reasonably full. There's not a huge amount of space. Obviously Thursdays, we are seeing a lot more traffic for people, particularly in the morning, because clearly the councillors need somewhere to park, and also visitors coming to the council meetings. So that does put a strain somewhat on the parking bays, to the point where people are often forced to park on the roads adjacent to the building. Now, the next slides illustrate the desk layouts per floor. So the first slide is of the annex first floor. The H means that hotel desks are basically desks that anybody can come into and just drop on and use if they're available, of course. So it's not that they're fully occupied all the time, but they may be occupied some of the time or infrequently by various staff members. The top floor has no hotel desk space. They are all permanently manned desks. and you can see that it's a fairly tight fit. There isn't any room for manoeuvre on those. Similarly, on the next slide, we have the admin building, with the first floor being predominantly sort of permanently manned desks. We do have one hotel desk space down there in the IT department with Gord, who floats about and deals with others. And then the second floor, where we currently are, I think this floor in particular is much more sort of packed with the least amount of flexibility out of all the four floors that I've just sort of highlighted. So the purpose of showing you these is just to show in real time, to scale, the level of density with which we're having to accommodate sort of many staff. Which moves on to the next section. So I've shown the current org chart as per the website. So the part-time desks are illustrated in blue, and the sort of the pinky salmon colour are people who don't require desks. They're predominantly field workers.
And we'd just add that on that work chart, there's 3 positions that are shown as yellow that are vacant, which are now filled since we've done this.
Beg your pardon.
And also there's, in the IT section, it shows the director and 3 desks. It's not labeled as IT, but beside the server room there,
Yep.
There's already an extra desk in there for the procurement officer as well. So there's
That is
4
true.
desks.
That's a new one. That was put in before I put these drawings together. So thank you for that. So yeah, you can see that we have beg your pardon, approximately 64 staff members currently, 9 part-time employees who work sort of varying hours and shifts, and then in the summer we typically have around 9 seasonal staff workers who are, the majority of which work with rec and are out in the field, but that's where the hotel desk space come in, because occasionally they come in and need use of it. The storage issues. So I mentioned that we do have off-site storage, but that's not always appropriate or convenient when we need to have larger things stored on a semi-permanent basis, or whether we need to have materials stored because they need to be accessed, you know, sort of reasonably frequently by multiple staff members perhaps. The 4 photographs just show current working rooms that we have both in the admin building and also off-site at the wastewater treatment plants, which are essentially just storerooms, particularly at the Western Shore and Mill Cove, where we have old desks which have, you know, we don't know what to do with. You know, there's nothing wrong with them, they're perfectly functional, but they still need to be stored out of the way. The boxes in the top 2 photographs just show the level of storage that is required. This has been somewhat addressed by some cabinets that have been bought and which have tidied that up, but nonetheless it's still material that needs to be looked after and addressed. I mentioned the off-site storage. We're currently spending at the moment about $17,000 per year on the access storage costs, and to date, since we secured those units, we've spent over $120,000 just storing paper files, old information, which could be, you know, decades old. We're not entirely sure why we're keeping some of it, because it just doesn't exist anymore. Or the drawings from 1976, which perhaps we don't need. In terms of future staffing requirements, this is somewhat of a guessing game, I'll be brutally honest, but I've extrapolated the numbers from the 2023 to 2024 and taken that out to 2030. So you can see that we do increase by, we're looking at 6 positions there, but I do know that we are underestimating that. conversations that we've been having recently at the executive management team and the senior management team level has certainly illustrated that we could easily fill that just in this year, those additional staffing, should council allow us to do so, of course. Now, not all new staff will need desks, and we are anticipating, based on the previous slide, that we would require a current number of 54 desks in 2024 numbers. We would need to go up to 63 desks by 2030, beg your pardon. So you can see, again, that's a lot of real estate that we need to have in the buildings in order to simply house folk and to give them the equipment that are required to do their job. Moving on to public works in particular, there are sort of a handful of requirements that we see as necessities, which should be featured into a public works depot, whether that's a standalone or whether it's part of a campus setup. So adjacent to the highway for access, offices for public works staff and administration, a workshop is essential, a garage not only to work on the vehicles but to store them securely, larger vehicle storage outside, equipment storage, hazardous material storage, loose material storage, and then the security fencing and cameras, and also to showers, laundry and kitchen, just so that the staff have somewhere to, to come in, wash, prepare food and sort of go home in a fit state. Now then, moving on to the options. So this is where the cheat sheet comes in. So option one is retrofit the existing buildings that we have. Now, I've put in a figure here of 2.2 million. If you recall, on Tuesday, the number was 1.8 million, and I said we could probably double that to, best part of 4. So this 2.2 million should probably be about 3.6 million, to be brutally honest with you. We still remain in the current buildings. We would not have a public works depot. In fact, if we were to fulfill all of the requirements set out by the accessibility audit, we would actually have less space due to the installation of larger washrooms and elevator wells. So we're losing space there if we stay as we are currently. The second option, which is the Link Building 2, which is the larger of the two options. So I was able to include the drawings that were provided by the consultant that we hired, R.V. Anderson. Very much a conceptual drawing, very much high level, but it gives some sense of how the administrative building and the annex building may be linked together to provide a single point of entry and reception for customer service, and how each department is situated next to each other or close to each other to make for for better communications. So that's why I'm able to give you sort of conceptual layouts or drawings for that option and option 3. Option 3 is the Link Building 2, which is the smaller version of the Link Building options. Again, drawings and suggestions made by R.V. Anderson back in 2024 when they last came to speak to us. Option 4 is the new admin building only. So this is a consolidation of the annex building and the administration building into one brand new building, so that we have the space for the staff, we have space for storage, we have space for growth. It would require land purchase. It does come with a high cost associated to it, but there would still be no public works depot. And given the growth that we are, sort of currently talking about and considering and planning for, not only in terms of staffing, but growth as a municipality and the population, we feel as though that a public works depot is essential in these discussions. Option 5 is that public works depot only. So we would stay where we are. We would continue addressing some of the accessibility audit recommendations in the annex and administrative building here, but we would build a dedicated public works only building, but that would not include any office space. So it would purely be for vehicles, it would be for storage of materials and equipment, and for basic, the very basic needs of the public works staff. It does not provide, or it provides very little option to increase our staffing numbers across all departments. Option 6 is the new public works and office and depot only. So again, an off-site facility. It would be additional to the current site we have here, but it would provide us with some office space for administration with public works. Option 7 is a new building and a new public works depot. So this is the most expensive option. It provides solutions to all of the issues that were previously mentioned, such as storage and staffing and growth. It would provide a single or potentially single location for both the depot and the administrative building, so it would be convenient for staff members and the public alike. Again, it would require that we locate and buy land in order to make that happen. And again, like I say, it is the highest cost option. So if we move to the cost options, very similar to when I showed you the economy of scale for the Modal, Kings and Argyll. Again, it shows a linear square footage where the most expensive option is actually provides the greatest or the best value in terms of dollars per square foot spent. So it's just to essentially illustrate that the bigger the project, the potentially better the square foot cost would be. And then the building options summary it summarises everything I've just mentioned, including the footprint, potential land required, and also estimated additional staff capacity. The next slide goes to what Councillor Bremner mentioned earlier about inflationary costs and sort of increases. The very bottom, the 24-25, these are the numbers that I've used to start with, and they are based on the estimates provided by RV Anderson, who I mentioned were the consultants. So based on their cost per square foot and our estimated needs based on each of the options, we can see that clearly over time, so up to 2030, there's an approximate increase of 16.25% between the 2024 prices that are in red and then the 2030 prices are in black at the top. So we're likely looking at 4 or 5 years. So we're not. It's going to take time, and we will be subject to the inflationary increases year over year. In terms of unserviced land costs, so we're anticipating unserviced land. We are currently in conversation with the federal government about a potential property which is to be brought to council for consideration. But they have given us a $6,720 per acre appraised value on that. We approached a local realtor and asked them to give an estimate. And they said that we should be looking at around 14,000 per acre. So that's the range we've given there. So if we went for 1 acre, it would be between 7,000 and 14. If we went 25 acres, it'd be 168 to 350. So that's just an illustration of what land costs may be should we go down this route. The other thing to consider are the services, and so we anticipate hooking up services to a unserviced lot to between $75,000 and $100,000. Again, estimates at this point. So, general considerations. So, overall operating of buildings, so in the short, medium and long-term sustainability costs. So, you know, it would be sensible at this point to start thinking about green building options, LEED certification and the like. We need to consider mitigation of climate change impacts, the accessibility component, so not just for staff members but for visitors and sort of public members coming in to speak with us. We need an inclusive and welcoming site for residents and visitors. The staffing, parking and storage need to be adequate, flexible and expandable so that, you know, in 5 years you're not bursting at the seams and wondering where we're going to go, or whether we're going to have to hire or rent, you know, additional off-site storage. From the customer service point of view, it very much focuses that on one single point of entry, which it is commonplace for municipalities and other public facilities to provide. It's a very simple concept which works. And we talked about having a campus option as well, but these are just sort of considerations. We also believe that a single point of entry for customer service provides a much more secure working environment for staff, just being a little bit more contained and it just makes a lot more sense, much more controlled environment. We would, in terms of timelines, so we would, you know, take any opportunities to be aligned with, potential future provincial and federal funding opportunities should they be available. That would take, we're not aware of any at the moment, but there have been opportunities for funding or assistance. The Green Building Fund is one that we could potentially apply for. The project is clearly multi-year and it may be phased over several years as well. What really I would like the council to consider now is the options or any new options that haven't been mentioned, and to direct administration as to where you see our future, whether it be any of the existing buildings or a combination of the options or brand new. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. I know there's no way to make this one here, short. Oh, you want to talk before I do? Oh.
Yes, I defer to Andre because you asked about different options.
Yes.
And we were just bantering back and forth here. And
Okay,
I'll let Andre to speak on it because I think it has a lot of potential.
Andre, you're on.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Omar.
Really?
I was going to say, which you'll be surprised at, is that I think the best option is a new building.
So, I just was wondering if staff have thought about, the GN thermoforming, campus. So, on that site, there are 5 buildings. The 3 buildings that front on the road, the main building, the tooling building, and the storage building, Kwanzaa Hut, those front 3 buildings would provide more than enough square footage for all of our staff and future growth. They are single level with a single point of entry. The Kwanzaa Hut, which would probably serve as an excellent public works garage, is cavernous and is detached from the other buildings. The tooling building, which is the one closest to the Eastchester end of the old Trunk 3, has high ceilings, so you could have single level office space and you could create a mezzanine for all your on-site storage. It's available, the entire campus, including the rear huge industrial buildings, is currently listed with Colliers for $8 million. Presumably, if staff were interested or council in pursuing it, then I know from discussions offline with the owner's representatives and staff that they are open to all offers, including breaking up the campus. It's local to the village and our core of our municipality. It provides an opportunity to reuse those buildings, and I think for them, their perspective, I shouldn't speak on their behalf, but the campus is very sort of gangly and you'd need a very special business to utilize all buildings, but if they could find a purchaser that could take some of them, then it leaves the two large industrial buildings in the back that would be seemed to me it would be a more saleable asset for them, because they were built later together. The ones along the front are very old, like not old, but I mean they're like 40 years old, and they were built at that time. The buildings, as I understand, are in good condition, and it could be an opportunity for us. I don't know if we've explored it, but it would, I think, check all the boxes that you highlighted. But that's just my layperson's opinion.
So quick, no, we haven't considered that because we weren't aware of it, but I mean, absolutely, we can take a look.
Yeah, I think it's worth exploring. I think the road I want to go down first is like, if we're not going to stay here, then that's the big thing that staff need to know. And then that will give them some direction on what options to explore. And obviously, if existing buildings work and find out where the land is possibly available for what we want to do, and you know, like I'm committed to us which is a change for me because I kind of want to stay here, but now I've changed my mind because it just doesn't make any sense anymore. We're growing as a municipality. Our staff are growing. I want to try to keep everybody together in one place if possible, and that means we need a new building. We need a new public works department, and you know, and if that site works, that's fine. If it doesn't and another site does, that's fine, but staff should at least be going down the road of saying, okay, we're moving. These are the options available to us, and this is the possibilities that we have. And the only thing I'd say on the GM plastic site, because I mean, I have actually had some discussions about that myself, is it's currently leased to a movie company in the States. I think it's only a 1-year lease with the ability to, but I mean, they're paying a couple $1 million a year. Oh, I shouldn't say because whatever. I don't know the details precisely, but I know that they're there.
Councillor Azaf.
Councillor Azaf?
Yeah, I'm glad this was brought to my attention as well. I guess my question is it hooked to the sewer out there? If you know, but would that be an issue for us to do that as a municipality? Because I think that's important that you have that service, that we're on sewer.
Yeah. I don't know, Fred, what do you think to that?
I mean,
I can see where it is, but
Okay.
you know, where we have a new lift station on Stanford Lake, we can take a great deal.
It would be
of traffic
relatively
out of
easy
that,
to do.
So it could be possible, and I just don't know.
No, that's okay. No, I didn't know if the sewer was out that far at all, or what it would take to do that, but,
Central or on-site options we would have to look at.
okay. I don't know what, they would have to have some kind of system
to have
there
something,
that
yeah.
was.
I think if it was an option we were going to consider, there's a whole bunch of work
Thanks.
we would
Sure,
need to look
sure.
at.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know, was Tina next or Andre next?
Tina was next.
Okay.
Certainly, thank you. I'm thinking, Andre, actually, timing might be answering Abdullah's question, I'm not sure, but doesn't matter. Okay, so for me, I'm excited the way the conversation's going, because I am on the same page as Warden Weber around where we've been for the last number of years, and the years previous to me coming to this council table, it was being discussed, so, and options were presented at that time. In 2010, I think, the staff, there was a report that was brought in around the needs here for this municipal building. So for me, going forward for any of the discussions today or tomorrow and next month, I'm looking at the whole idea of renovation or building for tomorrow and not just for today. So I appreciated those references to the other municipal units. And if we can't learn from others, you know, I may as well go home, I guess. In terms of, it makes me sad to think that those two municipal units are now using public space, meeting space, community hub space, not hub space, but for staff. And that's important, staff first, right? I get that. But, so for me, any decision that I'm gonna make has to be around tomorrow and not just today, whether that be renovation or building. I'm not saying either of those yet. Also too, for me, staff projections in terms of numbers, and equated to that would be the staff needs, e.g. healthy, workable space, because we can't be working like this. We do need to have healthy, workable space, and also a safe working environment. So whatever that takes, that's where I'm going to be landing. And also, I will say, I'm not convinced that we need to be located in the downtown of the core, or the core of the village. I'm not convinced of that yet. I look to other examples of municipal units, and maybe I need to take a better look at some of those examples that you've given, because I'm only familiar with Kings and Modal, right? They're not in those downtowns anymore. And I don't think that people are not going there, because people have to get there. They have to get here from the entirety of the municipality. So I'm not convinced, just because it's always been in the village, it has to stay within the downtown core of the village. I'm not saying that GN isn't a great idea, because I'm not taking anything off the table at all, right? That's not, I'm not convinced of that. And also too, I'm appreciative of Andre's suggestion and bringing it forward around GN. I will say I'm a little surprised, only because you have been always on the page of opening something up,
Options, come back with some options, that's what I want to see. But Andre, I think you were next, and then Tom.
I think that we need a public works building.
Yeah.
I think that is of paramount importance, and there are two things that are sort of happening. One, like this opportunity maybe of GN. Renovating is never my first choice, but it's the nature of the building, it's very open. It's easy to see what you have in front of you because it's a big open steel building. So it's a little more clear than sometimes when you get into something that's more obstructed. The view is, it's a little harder to take in the whole picture. So if we were to pursue, like march along, which I'm not sure if we're ready to do that, we also know that there's a discussion on the side about a future arena. And that space may or may not also be an opportunity for us to have some collaborative discussion. I think they may have mentioned it in their presentation, or at least offline, that there could have been an opportunity there as well. But that project is some years away. And that's why I think finding and putting a public works garage together with at least some staff that may be directly like related, like engineering related to public works, sort of maybe take the pressure off even for a couple of years while we find out if there's an opportunity with the arena, or if renovating an old industrial building is the right idea, or finding land somewhere to build new. I feel like the first step is identifying a solution to our public works problem. And so that's why, you know, that, I think we have to overcome that challenge first, and that may offer us maybe a couple of years of breathing time, just a suggestion.
Who's next?
Sorry, Councillor Bremner.
Okay.
Thank you, Warden Weber. A lot going through my mind right now, but I think the comments around the table are where we need to be. We're done here in this location, I think 50 years, 42 years later. It's definitely got issues, and we're only gonna cause more problems if we renovate and develop more changes that we're gonna find and all kinds of things. I love the option of possibly a site that's already partly developed and looking at that with the cost to the taxpayers, because we have a lot on our table right now. We have a lot of things coming that are all gonna want money, and if we can save one way to do another. So of course, my first option would be to look at the local site here in the Old Trunk 3 Road. And, or if that doesn't work, then I have to say we have to look at option 7 for the future, because we're building a building, in my opinion, for 50 years.
Oh.
With lots, we have no parking left here. I can't even get in this parking lot most days, so that's just my own thing, but that's for many people. I hear that from other people. Of course, I'd love to have it in the core, but that's still, in my opinion, the core of Chester, because we're close enough that, you know, it's part of East Chester, but it's part of our growing and changing world of where we're at today. And we've seen so much in the last 10 years change. And the longer we delay, we've been talking about this long before I left this community and now returned happily. We were talking about a new opportunity for a building. So it's been on the table that many years, and it's just been beaten and pounded, and everybody wants to see their own way. We have to think of where we are a community and a municipality. This is much more than our own little districts and areas. This is the growth of our balance and structure for where we're going. Our world is changing with that 20th highway. It's going to be here, and we've got some opportunity. The business you mentioned before came here because they seen opportunities, and we have to develop things with them and work with that kind of growth, because it is positive for our tax base, it is positive for our communities, it is positive for our staff. Staff first, flexibility, all the changes in accessibility, all the changes in just government regulations. We have to get our heads out of the sand and start being constructive in the way we do things. The charts tell the truth. Every chart that Manny has provided for us today here has a balance where you look, we're either way under or out of balance with what the reality of today is. And we're not going less, I don't think. We're just going to keep going. So for that reason, I'm looking at the first option is the one Councillor Vino said. Second for me would be option 7 on at least 25 acres where we could expand if we needed to, with growth of many combined opportunities if we see that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Coolin?
Hi, thank you very much. I think we can eliminate, let's just shorten this list. Can we all agree that Public Works needs to have their space? They need to have this pronto. So can we eliminate 1 to 4? Do we all agree that
Yeah, that's-
1 to 4 does not work, that it doesn't include anything with Public Works, that is one of the main reasons why we're on this table today? Office space, yes, but Public Works is in desperate need. So if we can eliminate 1 to 4, do we all agree at least on
I
that?
think we're all on that page.
Okay.
We're moving forward with new of
Yep,
something.
so now we're down to the other 3, okay. All right, just wanted to make sure, thank you.
Abdallah?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Andre, except the fact that I think the priority, and I agree, and because you know me, I'm a big public works guy, and I think it should be a bigger department. But I think our priority at the start is staff. The building actually of the, you know, I don't want to put public works ahead of staff.
Staff is Public Works.
No, but a separate public works building is more of a priority, unless I misunderstood, Andre, than building a, you know, are we gonna concentrate on the public works department before we concentrate on an actual new building?
Well,
Or can we do both?
it could potentially take 6 positions out of this building and give us a breathing room to figure the rest out.
Yeah, and staff have looked at one option as sort of an interim option if we're
It's not
planning a new
long-term.
building and we're 3 or 4 or 5 years out until we actually are able to get into a building, we do have at least one option that we can share with council. We just haven't done that until we're sort of knowing what direction we're going in. But there is one building that's already there that we could look at. It's not GN, but it is in the local area that we could look at for public works.
I think if we just give staff the direction that we're moving forward with new, and then they can bring back what that means to us moving forward and what the next steps are.
You need a motion for that?
Well, I don't know if I need a motion or just, if everybody agrees so that they know, if we take all this renovating the building off of the table here and just move forward and what, that would give us a plan of what that means,
I think
what
we
the
could
next
come
steps
back
are.
with a report on potential next steps, given the discussion today.
Yeah.
And to find out where, the other potential building might be. Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll be able to
It's all
tell
good-
us all
it's all
that,
good
and
conversation.
yeah, what we do next. But no longer talking about trying to make this our 50-year from now building. Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, Manny.
and now, I won't want to say this is simple, but surplus asset disposal policy.
Good day, sir.
Good day. I think we kind of talked about it already, haven't we?
Well, to a degree, yeah, there are certainly connections.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hello. So, this originates, actually, well, draw your own conclusion where it began, but there certainly was a motion made in 2021 to address IT inventory. And that motion was provided in the report, just as a reminder. And it focused on a disposition policy for information technology assets that would enable sale to staff with proceeds going to pro kids. Since then, there's been a number of changes, and that is no longer really a viable and appropriate option. So we're looking at, so what we've been sort of looking to do, and I say we, as my colleague Emily Key, our policy analyst, and I have been sort of looking at what a policy scope would look like to address some of these concerns. So in addition to the surplus IT inventory, as Manny alluded to, we have issues with surplus office furnishings. We also have surplus fleet out at the landfill. And so these need to be dealt with in one form or another. So what we're trying to sort of put together for a surplus asset disposal policy is one in which is a process that would enable something that's consistent and fair and transparent too, that addresses mandated legislative requirements, and also sort of ties in with what we're doing in terms of our burgeoning asset management practices. So all of those things ultimately should be able to be addressed. We conducted a brief sort of jurisdictional scan, just looking at what various municipal units do in respect to surplus assets disposal. And so we've distilled that, looked at our current practices, looked at and tried to sort of begin to map out a scope. So in the discussion section, there are a number of points, and I can touch on these briefly, and obviously questions, discussion, welcome. And ultimately, if we have direction from council to proceed with these points and or any other, then we'll come back with a sort of full draft of a policy. Some of this should be fairly straightforward. So the first one, surplus assets definition. If we're going to talk about surplus assets and what to do with them, we need to understand what it is exactly we're talking about. So for this, and again, a lot of this is borne out by the research, the jurisdictional scan, we're talking about movable assets. We're talking about those things that are not fixed, obviously. And so even though initially when council made that motion, the focus was on surplus IT inventory, it makes sense for us to address also movable assets to include office furnishings, fleet, and so that's equipment as appropriate. So defining what that is in terms of movable assets, understanding what surplus means. And so for that, we can go back to, as the other municipal units often do, go back to what the NGA is talking about in respect to that disposal. So that's
Stuff we're
clear.
not using anymore.
Exactly, essentially, that has no direct use or so on, or is obsolete and so on. So item number 2 is restricting the sale of assets to council members and staff. So we already have the recent policy P102, the Code of Conduct for Elected Officials, which limits that anyway.
Yeah.
The best practice, which is sort of, seems to be prevalent in all of the other sample policies we looked at, limits that not only to council, limits the sale of surplus assets not only to council but also to staff in an effort to sort of avoid any kind of perceived or actual conflicts of interest. That's clear, that seems clear true. So our recommendation is that we include that sort of
Makes
limitation. Any opposition to any of these points so far?
No.
All right. The third, allowable disposable methods. Now, there is some range in the policies we looked at, but by and large, these are the kinds of common practices. And the intent, our proposal is that we would include in this surplus assets disposal policy this following list of disposal methods in the sequence outlined. So this would be accompanied by more detailed procedural elements, so then you can get into, okay, so if we're talking about public sale, what does that look like? How do we approach that, and so forth. We'd also include a decision tree that would enable those who are making those decisions about when an asset is surplus, to follow through and see what adds up as a sort of viable approach to disposing of that asset. So those lists then would be, that sequence would be a department transfer. Could that asset be used by another department? Trade-in, a donation to a registered not-for-profit organization, the sale of that asset via public auction or public tender, recycling to the fullest extent possible, and then as the last possible resort, scrapping of that item taken to Kaiser Meadow if there's no recycling programs for it. So those are that's our recommended scope in respect to those disposal methods. Any comments on any of that?
Oh, makes sense to me. You do what makes.
All right, perfect. And as I said, what will be really important is that would be the procedural component that will outline what those what's actually the meat of what those options are. The fourth point is the approval of sales and donations, and this one we don't have a clear recommendation right now. What we see in the examples we looked at is that there are several sort of thresholds as to what triggers approval by either, in some cases, a procurement officer, in some cases CAO, some cases a department lead, some cases council. And thresholds range from $500 triggering different things to $100,000. So what Emily and I want to have a closer look at is just exactly what's informing those decisions. So we would like to do some sort of follow-up with those municipal units, have a discussion, trying to gain an understanding of why they reach those thresholds. There may be implications, maybe legal implications, so we'd certainly have to have a chat with our municipal solicitor. There may be tax implications for organizations should there be a donation of a certain threshold amount. So it's that kind of detail we'd have to look through.
Yep.
So unfortunately, we don't have a recommendation around that yet, but what we do propose is that the draft policy would come with a recommendation from us as to what thresholds we're looking at and to why, and maybe include some options as well.
Can I just? I think it would be helpful as part of this discussion, though, if there is any thought from council that there's a threshold, that there be threshold levels. Is there any desire for council to have to approve disposal, I think is one of the keys, because what we had initially looked at was procurement officer up to a certain dollar amount, and then above that dollar amount, the CAO, and my question, and that's probably why we have it structured the way we do to say we need to come back, is there a threshold at which council should be involved in that, and it shouldn't just be up to the CAO?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I think no. I think that if we, in our budgeting process, have deemed that we are replacing an item, then by its very nature, we have also deemed that we have obsoleted something else. And that I don't really have I don't want to have any role in this, honestly. I think that, you know, if we have a lawnmower or an old printer or a coffee machine or whatever it is that is surplus to our needs, then it should go on some website somewhere and be listed for the public to bid it at a certain time, if they wish to do so. And if we receive no bids, then we'll take it to Kaiser Meadow and dispose of it.
Yeah. I agree entirely. The only exception would be is if we decide to sell this building after we're.
That's real estate.
Yeah, that's it. I might want some saying that.
Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, the threshold, I think, you know, you guys can decide that.
Okay.
But anything, I mean.
Good.
Even, I mean, there are vehicles that are up, it's not like you're talking a
Yeah.
$800,000
No.
machine, but anything that's like major, obviously,
Well,
well,
read
common
the-
sense.
So no, that's different messaging, I think. That's what we are concerned about is if it says that the threshold is up to, you know, up to $100,000, I'm making figures up, but the procurement officer says does up to 100,000, and from there, the approval is the CAO beyond the 100,000, then that's what we're talking about is, if it's 800,000, I don't want council coming back and saying that should have come to us. We need clarity on that.
Yeah. Tina?
Thank you. I'm good with everything. It just gives me a chance to ask a question as well as give a plug for the Lunenburg County Senior Safety Program. Under the scope of disposal, I guess, department transfer, trade-in,
Yep.
then we get to donation
Yep.
and so on. I love all that. Question, have we done any donations to date?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, great. I'm glad that this is on here then.
So the only one, Gold River School, when we were emptying the contents of that, I believe there was an ability to have a community day where
Yeah, they came.
stuff
They
was
came.
donated, there was
They
some
were able to-
donation in there.
Yeah.
But again, it was case by case basis stuff where we
Yeah.
would come to council because we didn't have a policy.
Good.
So we would come, that's what we're looking for.
So I'm glad of this policy. I'm glad for this discussion today. So to continue, there really is just a plug. So thank you for that. It's just a plug for the senior safety. And I know that actually Councillor Deputy Warden Asif mentioned this a couple of months ago, I think, because it is on the monthly report every time. And I'm looking at an old one now in red letters. Special request for used iPhones. Used iPhones are repaired and other working cell phones are distributed to seniors and others in need to keep them, and so on. So I really am passionate about that, and I know that the United Way is very much on board with that, and there's somebody geared around that does the repairs and does all that work, that there's no cost to this group and so on, so just to get that plug in.
Yeah, and
So
I
you're
think,
gonna add that into your policy? That's
yeah,
the
in terms of.
donations to
Yes.
not-for-profits?
Yeah, that's part of it, and I think.
Yeah,
if I can-
Andre?
May I just sort of just follow
Sure,
up on
yeah.
that comment? And I think what is gonna be, something that we need to thresh out, is making sure that we have that clarity of process in terms of, because I do think if we sort of start putting out, yes, we have this surplus IT equipment, I think there may well be a considerable inference from a number of not-for-profit organizations, so we're
How do
gonna
we
have to come up.
decide?
Yeah, exactly, we have to come up with and that'll be part of the procedural element, how do we determine who gets that? So maybe it's simply first come, first served, I don't know, but we'll look into it and come back with what that looks like.
On the other side, like there's the Grand Canyon between me and Tina here, or Councilor Connors here. Because, you know, I wanna have nothing to do with deciding what groups get what, or anything like that. To me, we should have no policy that does that. To me, if it's surplus to our needs, we put it on a website, and it's sold to whoever in the public wants it. Doesn't matter if it's a phone, coffee maker, lawnmower, it could be even high value, maybe it's some crazy conveyor thing that we have back at Kaiser Meadow that's worth a couple $100,000 to somebody, the right person that's in that business that needs that equipment, but it's surplus to our needs and we deem it surplus in our budgeting process, out it goes on the website, it gets bid. I don't know why we would wanna meddle with trying to decide what goes where, like, to me, it should be just like the federal government, just, don't interrupt me, please. The federal government, the provincial government, they don't do any of that, you know, we're a layer of government, it should be impersonal. And we just, if it's surplus to our needs, we put it up, whoever wants it, takes it.
I think she was suggesting that it be donated to these not-for-profits.
I know.
Yeah, well, I mean,
How do we decide? How do we decide who the lucky ones are?
Well, we can investigate that.
Do I have the
Say
floor?
no, don't touch it.
Sharon?
Yes, thank you, Warden Weber. I actually think we should post it somewhere on the website. I know I work for a nonprofit, and we quite often get things through surplus government equipment. There is an area where you can list surplus government equipment, and maybe then once or twice a year, it goes up for sale or giveaway. And that would be an opportunity, if there's any nonprofits, like whatever group we're involved in, could say there's going to be a listing of things on the website. Maybe you should go look and
Yeah.
maybe get it. I actually like the fact that it's put on one site, but I do know, certainly, where I work, we've gotten quite a few pieces of furniture that way. Maybe it needs to be different for the IT equipment, I don't know, but that's just a thought, to have it, and have it available, only once or twice a year. Thank you.
Yeah, and it could be, just as if the emphasis, as has been, if council's direction is to certainly go ahead and make this as an impersonal process as possible, it simply could be listing what's available for donation or sale, whatever point we're at, and then it's simply first come, first served. It could be something like that. We'd have to sort of just make sure that mechanics would work, but it'd be interesting to see how other units handle that process.
Okay, so what do we want to do, people? Obviously, we want you to complete the policy.
Yeah.
We don't want very much of anything to do with it unless it's real estate or whatever.
That's fair enough. Yeah, and, okay, I think that's clear
What are
enough.
we gonna do about the not-for-profit piece? Because I think that was not to sell it to them, it was to give it to them.
Yeah, and I think that's, and again, if we follow through, so it's a donation and then sale. So we could follow that process, and then if whatever's left over, if there's no interest in something as a donated item, then we could move to sale and follow the process.
That's a straightforward thing.
I think we can look at options of what that would be. So it all gets posted onto some sort of
Yeah.
disposal website.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to have some policy around when is it a sale and when is it not? Because if there's $800,000, are you just donating an $800,000 piece of equipment? Or is it up to a certain value to nonprofits? We'll try and flesh some of that out.
Okay,
but-
flush some of that.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're done with that?
Yeah, I mean, the only other points were, obviously, we'd have to ensure that the policy addresses, when it's specifically IT, that it comes to data sanitization. So obviously, if we remove it, it has to be clean, so our IT staff will take care of that. And then the only other point that I was gonna make is making sure that we're not developing this policy in isolation, that it is embedded in our asset management practices, so that, because there will be further details about other asset classes or our asset management plan, and so we just wanna make sure that we're not causing problems for ourselves down the road.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so that's it for the agenda,
Thank you.
and Tina has asked if we can add one item on new business. Anybody have a problem with that? Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council, for allowing me to add this. I completely forgot about this, and I can't believe it got by me. It's the Municipal Code of Conduct in-person training sessions that NSFM had sent out, and the list was included in our council package November the 14th. I had intended to take in or attend the session in Wolfville this past Monday, and I did not do that. And I believe that these were discretionary, but there's a mandatory online one. So now I'm giving further thought to whether and I just wanted to have a discussion with my fellow councilors to see where they're going with this, or have gone. So there's one next Thursday afternoon in Bridgewater for the social region, so both of them are great. And I didn't know what everyone's thoughts were on that. I don't know now. Do we know anything more about the dates of the mandatory online one? Okay, so that's still ahead of us. So I wanted to bring that on the agenda right now because I thought of it. Councillor Poulin and Councillor Bremner, did you attend one of these in Truro?
Bible Hill.
The 2-hour one?
In Bible Hill.
Specifically on the, specifically
not
on
that
the,
specific one, but another one.
because this is a 2-hour,
Right.
very specific and focused code of conduct.
We did not.
Yeah, I haven't attended any.
So maybe we can take that offline and just, I can have a conversation with you while you're putting on your coats to see what you think and all that. Just wanted to throw it out there to see if anyone might want to do that, or should we do that?
What time?
Next Thursday in Bridgewater, 1 to 3. We can register by today. Just throwing that in. Next Thursday, we're here in the morning. We'd have to leave by 12 noon though, and we have an audit meeting at 11. Don't we?
Yeah, no, I can't do it next, well, I'm not going, I guess, next Thursday. but-
So I just wanted to throw that out there. So
Yeah.
give it some thought.
Yeah,
So you're talking January?
be nice if somebody could go.
Yeah, I'll go.
I know,
I'll go.
right?
I'll go.
Okay, there we go, we got somebody going.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, and I would just like to say that 3 AM will be performing this Saturday afternoon from 1 to 4.
Black Harbor.
At Black Harbor
Oh.
Distilleries.
Black.
It's an afternoon
And
show.
you're making that part of your motion to adjourn?
You gotta get
Do we,
some local
do we have a
business.
seconder? Seconded by Councilor